Okay, good afternoon. We apologize for the delay. This afternoon session was supposed to start at 1 p.m. We finished the morning late, so you're supposed to start at 1:45, and now we just had some technical difficulties. So welcome, and thank you for your indulgence. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who registered in advance will be connecting either by their telephone, their computer, or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Don Taylor, Sophia Ruddick, Danny Bellissimo, and Stan Kumorik. My name is Michael Clark, and I am the panel chair. All registered participants will be participating by audio only. We also ask that you mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and, in the event of an appeal, the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. I'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda. We'll perhaps deal with some deferral requests at the outset. And where an application, in making your submissions, where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. Where the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please start off by stating your name and address clearly for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent goes first and makes a presentation to the committee. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application or with concerns will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they've made their submissions. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that have been raised by the speakers. That will then mark the end of the discussion, and the application is then taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest for panel or staff on the matters before us on the afternoon agenda? Okay, none to declare. In that case, we can start with the application, starting with item number 21, 155 TORYORK Drive, number 16. And the question is, there is a request on this by transportation. The only variance is transportation related. They're providing 49 spaces. They require either 117 or 120 under the citywide and under the specific bylaw, respectively. So that's the only variance, and transportation is requesting a deferral of the application in order for, they have no objection subject to following notations being included on the site plan. I saw that they're requesting a deferral to allow the applicant sufficient time to supply get the supplying material as requested. So the agent is Victor Rosa. So Victor,
Yes,
the first
a very good
question is,
afternoon.
are we proceeding her, or are you going to take the deferral?
First of all, a very good
transportation?
afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. In light of this report issued September 20th, we are requesting a deferral in order to give sufficient time to prepare the required information to be submitted to transportation for their review.
Okay. So committee members, we need a motion to defer.
Danny Bellissimo moves for deferral.
Thank you, Danny, seconded by Sophia Reddick. Thank you. All in favor? The matter is deferred. Victor, we'll see you here again.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay, item number 22 is also a deferral request by planning staff in this case, 50 Strath Avenue. The agent is Chris Marchese. It's for a new detached garage, and so let's just first deal with the deferral request. Mr. Marchese?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. Chris Marchese, 900 the East Mall.
We can barely hear you, Chris.
We are looking, we are looking to proceed today. Notwithstanding the comments from planning, I'll be happy to address their deferral request on this matter, but we are looking to proceed and have the application heard here today.
Okay. So in that case, just let's deal with the other deferrals and we'll come back to you. It'll be the first application heard, I take it, number 22. So the next deferral is item number 2426 Syndicate Avenue. We do have a revised yellow notice sheet, but we have a request by community planning again to have this matter deferred in order for staff time to review and time to communicate and make changes possibly. So the speaker again, Marco Vieira.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Marco Vieira here, 257 Dunraven Drive. And we agree with the deferral request. We have gone ahead and made additional changes to the ones you have on file. But we weren't able to get the confirmation from the zoning examiner and how that actually affect our applications. We would like to go back to zoning, have a revised zoning notice, and then resubmit and come back before the.
Okay, well, that's interesting because for some reason today, most of the planning requested deferrals, the applicants are opposed to. So this is one that you're willing to accept. So, okay, so we need a motion, panel members, for item number 24 to defer.
Sophia Reddick, motion to defer.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That was the motion to defer from
Okay,
Sophia Reddick.
thank you, Ms. Reddick. Seconder for that motion, Mr. Bellissimo. All in favor?
Danny Bellissimo.
Okay, the matter is deferred. Thank you. Okay, Marco, you're here on another application anyway, and let's see what else. Item number 33, A, B, and C, 94 Prince Edward Drive South. We have a request by planning and by the applicant, as he was advised that Forestry will not approve, so he's requesting deferral to consult and hire an arborist. In the additional materials, we had an opposition letter, and so we have a request by both staff and the applicant. So let's hear from the agent on this application is Charles Bunker.
Yes,
As well as we have
41
another
Waverly-
neighbor on the line with to comment, I guess, on the substantive. So, Mr. Bunker?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes,
sir,
we'd like a deferral.
yeah, I saw your email, and also, as you know, community planning is asking for it as well. Okay, so Committee members, can we have a motion to defer item number 33? Oh, sorry, let's just, we might as well, we have another neighbor on the line. Mr. and Mrs. Haggerty?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chair and Committee.
That's Christine Haggerty.
Correct.
So as you've been listening, this staff and the applicant are asking for a deferral on this. So this matter will be brought on another agenda and you will be notified. And so we're not going to hear it on the substantive. I don't know what your issues are because we don't have, no, we have a letter from another neighbor that came in with the additional materials. So this matter will be deferred as being requested by this, community planning and by the applicant. I trust that's acceptable to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, you will be re-notified and we will be having another hearing another day when this matter is being brought back on.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, so motion to defer.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have some concerns with this deferral matter. With respect to the planning department, I noticed their deferral request is dated June 28th. And I'm just wondering if that is still applicable. It would have been nice to get a more current report on that from the planning department. And I'm also concerned about the rationale that it should be deferred because urban forestry said they wouldn't approve it. That information came from Mr. Bunker in an email,
Yes.
and he talked about being told that by someone from urban forestry during a site visit on September the 26th. We, however, have a consolidated memo from urban forestry dated September 28th that recommends their conditions 1 and 2.
I think they were looking for a deferral as well. Sorry, a refusal. It was condition 5, which is the deny variance. You can see Nicole just put it up on the board. So in terms of
I do see that.
Yeah.
But they go on to say, could we just look a little bit further down? Oh yeah, if despite the committee approves condition 1 and condition 2.
yeah, so that's, I guess, a very typical fallback. They usually, when they recommend denial, they go on to say, well, if you don't deny it, then we want other conditions. So that's isn't that a very typical condition? I agree that community planning's request could be more timely, but if nothing's changed in the interim, because if they're looking, I think they were looking for additional information, or was this one where they're looking to make changes and they haven't had time to review it? Let's see.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I actually do have an email from planning that I received late yesterday that they no longer have comments.
Okay, they no longer have comments. However, I guess Mr. Bunker, I don't know if he was aware that they had been satisfied, but he then wrote in, as you just mentioned, that based on an oral comment, but I don't know if Mr. Bunker wants to reconsider, given the fact that, as you point out, Mr. Taylor, there's the fallback if the committee doesn't agree with the denial for urban forestry purposes, then the other 2 conditions kick in. So perhaps we should go back to Mr. Bunker and see if that changes his position or if he still wishes to have a deferral.
I believe we should still have the deferral. We have retained an arborist and he is going to assess the conditions of the trees.
Okay.
We were told by the person from forestry that came on the property that they would oppose the application. So we're trying to work with them.
Okay, I guess time is usually a concern. You're going to have a delay. And as Mr. Taylor pointed out, notwithstanding their denial doesn't mean that the committee members aren't going to agree that the application, notwithstanding the possible impact on a tree, could be satisfied with the other 2 conditions, as sometimes or even often happens here. But that's purely your prerogative. You're the applicant. If you want a deferral, and provided one of the members is prepared to make a motion to that effect, then you're entitled to your deferral, I take it. Mr. Taylor?
I guess I kind of muddied things up here, so I feel obliged to make a motion. Mr. Bunker, you're much more of a gentleman than I would be in your situation. Personally, I would have insisted on proceeding with this today. However, you desire to defer, so I will move for deferral to enable you to sort out issues with urban forestry.
Okay, seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr.
And
Kamara.
Decimo, second.
Okay, his hand up went first. Doesn't matter. All in favor of the deferral? Okay, the matter is deferred unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bunker. We'll see you here again.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's return to the top of the agenda. Item 21 then has been deferred, correct? Okay, and 22, he wishes to proceed, so that's Chris Marchese, 50 Strath Avenue. Just hang on a second. It's an application to construct a new detached garage with 4 variances.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we also have planning requesting deferral of number 37.
Okay. Okay, well, why don't we do this one and then we'll deal with that one, if that's
Okay.
okay with everyone. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, Mr.
You bet.
Marchese, so on Strath, we have supporting material, forestry looking for a deferral, a forestry memo, and transportation comments. And transportation advises that, again, they want some conditions of approval, some conditions on the notations on the site plan drawing. There are 5 items. And we have a letter of opposition. No, we don't. That's the next one. Okay, that's all we have. Mr. Marchese.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, fellow committee members. Chris Marchese, planner at Design Plan Services, 900 the East Mall, Suite 300. Just want to clarify a few of the planning comments that have been provided. Urban Forestry has submitted 2 memos, one requesting deferral, one saying that there's no objection because none of the variances are associated, and they recommend standard conditions be tied to the approval, which I find those to be necessary, or to be acceptable if the application were approved today. Also, we submitted an updated site plan that demonstrates the requirements as per transportation comments. If I can kindly have city staff pull up that updated site plan just to show the committee members exactly what has changed. So that isn't the updated driveway extension.
Yeah, the additional materials had 6 letters of support and a revised site plan to
Correct.
address the transportation comments and to show the permeable paver walkway. Right?
Correct. Here it is coming up on the screen right now. So as she's pulling it up, I'll just begin to explain. First and foremost, the garage is actually getting smaller in size. We've reduced the coverage and the square footage of the proposed garage, and we've added a proposed covered porch just to be provide more functionality of the rear yard with the newly approved pool that a permit has been issued on. As you can see at the front yard there, as per transportation comments, we have the existing driveway labeled at 2.6 meters and the remaining portion of the 2.89 to be considered a permeable paver walkway, which will satisfy transportation comments. Furthermore to that, the walkway is not extending to the street. It's actually just staying fully within the private portion of the and is not extending throughout Municipal Boulevard. So what you'll see is you'll have an existing drive-in and an extended walkway leading to the front door. In the additional supplementary material, I've submitted many photos along Strath Avenue, the immediate block, that has many examples existing exactly what we are proposing. Majority of them do have a different permeable paver or a different material for the walkway, but some of them just have wider driveways that are permitted as of right. Furthermore, the proposed driveway or the existing driveway at 47 Strath, which I've included a photo, which is located just across the street from the subject property, was approved for a driveway width at 6.77 meters with the exact same condition imposed that transportation is requesting on this application here in front of you today. The idea is to use this area as a walkway, not as a parking spot. There's no parking spot requested, and the parking spot is in the rear of the property, and to just enhance the functionality and aesthetics of the front main yard. I believe that the 4 variances associated are minor in nature, meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and should be approved, but I will be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marchese. I have just one question. I'm just looking at these 2 forestry memos. One is to defer, one is, says they have no problem. They're both dated. I want to see which was earlier and which is later. They're both dated September the 17th. So I don't understand how they're both dated the same date, where they, on one hand, they asked to defer, and then they went on and said everything's fine. And don't
through you, Mr. Chair.
variances.
I agree with the comment, and I had the same question. In the second, or the memo that had no issues, I think they mentioned that none of the variances are directly associated with the trees,
Okay.
Which is informative to the committee in making their decision. Either way, we have to go through a permit process with urban forestry. We're happy to impose conditions to make sure that we satisfy all the requirements and all their needs if this application were to be approved today by the committee.
Okay, it just would have been helpful if we had, if they did it the same date, if they would have said in the second one where they said everything's okay, they would have explained that they're retracting their previous letter, but so be it. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Marchese?
I do, or it's more of a comment. I believe urban forestry was concerned about the pool as opposed to the house, and that the construction of the pool would affect a privately owned tree in the back. I don't know if that helps clarify things or not, but
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the comment. As far as I've been told, I was not part of the pool permit process, but that has already been issued. And it could also be that the 2 trees that are at the rear of the property on the adjacent abutting rear property there, where the garage is actually moving further away from, that could actually be within the TPZ as well. That has to be dealt with. But either way, we're happy to go through urban forestry and their requirements if this application were to be approved, and the standard conditions are acceptable, in my opinion.
Okay, so does anyone have any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion?
can I, just a further comment, I just wanted to clarify on transportation conditions. I understand that the first condition has now been met by the new site plan, but I believe the remaining conditions would still apply. I just want to clarify that the applicant understands that.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I do agree with that comment. Condition number 1 has been satisfied, but the remaining conditions will still be outstanding and have to be satisfied prior to any permit being issued on this property. I do agree with that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Usually you would include all of the conditions because you want to make sure that the plans filed for a building permit would reflect that condition. Because if you don't include condition 1, there's nothing stopping. I'm not saying these people would do that in any way, but there's nothing stopping someone from then revising the plans and not showing the walkway.
Okay, so in the abundance of caution, even if a condition has been satisfied, I guess we should include it, so.
You can tie it to the site plan if needed, just to make sure that that's what we're going to propose. I mean, I appreciate the comment from the Secretary Treasurer, but either include it condition 1 or tie it to the site plan. Either way, I find those both to be acceptable here today.
Based on that discussion, I think I can take a stab at a motion. I'd like to propose approval. I do believe it meets the 4 tests, subject to well, let's tie it to the site plan, indicating the walkway, and tying it to transportation conditions 2 through 4. And I would also suggest that it be conditional on forestry condition number 2 with regards to private trees.
Okay, seconder for that motion, Mr. Taylor?
I will, but I just want to make a couple of potential modifications to that. The transportation conditions are referenced where Mr. Kumar said 2 to 4.
Yeah, it's 2 to 5.
Is it not 2 to 5?
Yep.
And I also, according to the urban forestry memo, the fallback to a deferral is actually condition 1, not 2, in their September 17th memo. So I would second the motion. I would second the motion if it referenced urban forestry condition 1 and transportation conditions 1 to 5.
Okay, is that
So
acceptable?
can we add condition 1, but leave condition 2 as well, just because of the concerns expressed about the trees by the pool? Is that fair?
Yeah, but are you okay with adding condition 5? as
Condition
well?
1. Yeah, yes, and transportation, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, the only comment I make in my notes I'd written down was urban forestry 4. I mean, I made a mistake, but I don't even know what urban forestry 4 is. So it is clearly 1 and
Deferral.
2?
It's just 1. Condition 1.
Okay, staff? Barb?
What is transportation condition 5? Because I only had 2 to 4 written down.
The site plan must be revised to include a notation on the drawing stating the applicant must obtain all required permits to construct the proposed driveways from the permits and enforcement section of transportation
Okay.
services, i.e. curb cut permits, etc.
Yeah,
Fair
and
enough.
forestry is Article 2, which is normally condition number 1.
Okay, has the motion been resolved? Do we know what is it 1 and 2 or just 1? And I have number 4 written down. I just checked the memo. It said number 4.
4 is a
Four
deferral.
to get
4
a
is deferral.
Oh, I see. Okay, right.
But then
Okay.
the deferral memo has a tie back to having a condition, which is Article 2. And if you look at their normal memo, that's condition 1.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Stan, second by Don, transportation conditions 1 to 5, the site plan, tied to the site plan, the revised one, and forestry condition number 1.
Okay, it is 1. Okay, so that's the motion made by Mr. Komorek as revised and seconded by Mr. Taylor. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Marchese. Glad we worked through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay, we'll try. Item number 23 is 14 Rockcliffe Boulevard. It's to construct a new detached dwelling, and the existing detached garage in the rear yard will be maintained. There are 10 variances, including variances to the existing garage. And we have concerns from 12 Rockcliffe. They're saying it's a 6-year-old garage without permits, but I guess this is obviously going to legalize. And that's all we have. We do have the agent, Marco Vieira, as well as the neighbor who wrote in the letter at number 12, Heather Rowe. And I believe that's all we have on this application. No comments from city departments. And the agent is Mr. Marco Vieira, and then we'll hear from the neighbor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Marco Vieira here, 257 Dunraven Drive. I am the agent and the designer for this application. This application is actually before the committee for almost the identical application that was heard back in 2015 for the, let's just call it the exact same house. Reason we're before the committee is because more than 50% the first floor walls were deemed to be unsafe in terms of adding a second story. So the contractor on site had removed more than the 50%, which means that this house now becomes a new detached dwelling. And in applying back to zoning review before coming before the committee, we arise that these variances, 4 relate to the proposed dwelling, and the other 6 variances relate to the existing garage. Is the examiner's or the zoning examiner's interpretation that once the house is deemed to not be there because it's a new build, then the garage is no longer an accessory structure. That's why he has gone and listed the variances associated with that garage. That garage has been built with a building permit. It was also part of the previous Committee of Adjustments application. It was also given to us for the building permit earlier this year. So essentially, the house is exactly the same. The proposal is to maintain the existing garage. And if anything, we brought down the height of the proposed dwelling. There was a variance to the height of the first floor, and we also brought down the FSI. So
Question,
essentially,
can I just
Yes.
interrupt for a second? So you're
Sure.
telling us this was approved as a series of additions at committee, and now
Correct.
because the wall came down, it has to be recarved. Why is there nothing in our agenda about that? Why is there not a previous decision? Why is this not listed in the purpose of the application? It's just coming to us with completely. Do we have another application? When, Mr. Vieira, when was that approval for those
It's
additions?
application number 8677
The date.
-15.
Okay, what
And
was the
we
date of
did
the
review
application?
that. I can get,
Like
I
a
can
year
give that
ago,
to you
10
as
years
well.
ago? How recent was this?
No, it was 2016. The January 28th, the notice of decision was given January 28th of 2016 for the exact same house. We've clarified our proposal with planning. That's why planning has no concerns. But I'm not sure why there's no reference to the added material.
Staff? Ms.
The
Bartosi,
one that's
what's
on
going
screen
like,
right
should
now?
we not have been aware that this is basically something that was approved as part of a series of
Yes.
additions in 2016? I assume maybe the neighbor would.
Yes, it was missed by our office. I'm sorry about
Okay,
that.
so in that case, I guess that puts it in a completely different context. There are 10 variances, including for the garage, but okay, that comes a bit of
The
surprise.
previous application was for an addition rather than a new dwelling.
Yes.
So the context may not be exactly the same, but yes, there is a
No, he
previous
said
decision.
that it's the same. How they haven't made any changes. I'm just wondering, why did it take from 2016, or let's say a year after it was built? Took a year to build. Well, we're sitting in 2021 now. So what's been going on for the last 5 years, Mr.
So
Vieira?
the current homeowner, they had another addition to the family, so they put the construction off for a couple of years. And then last year, we began the process in applying for building permit, which we were able to obtain this year.
Oh, so it
and
wasn't built back
unfortunately-
then. So it wasn't built.
No, it was not. It was being built earlier this late spring, I would assume. I guess that's the timeline. But the contractor on site, with the advice of the engineer, removed those walls, which probably shouldn't have been done in hindsight right away because we wouldn't be here. But at that point, it was too late, and essentially, we're here for a new house when it was previously granted as a renovation because the intent was to keep 50%
Okay.
of the existing footprint.
Okay, so it was approved in 16 but not built. It would have been helpful to see which of these variances or similar characterization of height or whatever, or setbacks, and the like.
All the same.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That's why I guess
yeah.
planning would have been nice. Planning give us a report to explain why they're supporting this or not commenting, but that's in a perfect world. We're not in a perfect world. So committee members, any questions for Mr. Vieira? And then we'll hear from the neighbor.
I have a question. I have a question for Mr. Vieira before we go forward. Mr. Vieira, do you have a survey that shows the existing garage? Because the one that's been submitted in our package predates that garage.
Yes, we do. We did obtain a brand new survey because as part of the new permit application that we're required to do, and our site plan is based on that new survey. It has upgraded topographic information on it. That one right there just went past the screen, our site plan, and that garage has been confirmed to have no encroachments. It is on our side. The setbacks to that proposed garage or existing garage are outlined in the zoning examiner. So this new survey.
It's just confusing because we do not have that before us and we have these variances And it wasn't clear whether they were based on your site plan or whether they were based on an updated survey. So was a survey submitted to the Committee of Adjustment?
I believe it was, and one can be provided because our site plan was done as an overlay to that survey. And you can see
Okay.
on the date of the site plan, it was an updated survey done earlier this year, which correctly shows the location of the garage and also the setbacks of the proposed dwelling are essentially the same as in 2016 or as the old footprint of.
But Marco, you know that an application requirement is to have an up-to-date survey, and the one you submitted is from 2010. So why wouldn't you have submitted the up-to-date survey with your application if there was one?
I mean, that might have been missed on my part with my staff here submitting the old one that was misfiled with the original application, but we did get a new one. That's the one right there on the screen that you're
No,
scrolling
that's a
through.
site plan.
That's a
though.
site
That's
plan.
not a survey.
But that site plan was based on the survey and the date on it. And I could email that survey for you guys, for you to have as part of your file, but it all is based on the existing site conditions. There's no alterations proposed whatsoever.
I'm very tempted to move a motion to defer this application. So we actually have all the proper information to make the decision.
Yeah, we haven't heard from the neighbor yet either.
I'm sorry, I'm just, yeah,
That's okay,
I know,
yeah.
just my,
Okay.
I mean, if you're gonna go to a,
It's because the reason for the deferral because the 2000 the current survey as opposed to the 11-year-old survey is not before us. What's the purpose of the deferral?
that's part of it. I mean, the other part is we don't have the information that this is, not a new application.
Well, isn't it? I assume it's a new application with a
Well,
new
it
fee
is.
paid and everything. So at least we know the
Okay,
history.
no,
But
fair enough.
yeah, it's he paid another fee, right? You had a new application, Marco?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We did. New fee, new submission, and also a new zoning review was done in order to go in front of the committee.
Okay, anyway, I'm not doing anything that, let's go forward. Thank you.
Okay, so let's hear from the neighbor. I don't know if she's aware of any of this. Heather Rowe at 12 Rockcliffe.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. It's Heather Rowe, 12 Rockcliffe Boulevard.
Okay, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was quite concerned, and my neighbors as well. They come to me. I'm the closest neighbor to the house that was demolished at 14 Rockcliffe. This was done on Monday, April 5th of this year, Easter Monday, without warning. We were shocked. We did not receive any warning from the city that this was going to take place. Obviously, something went wrong. So now we are here. I was listening to Mr. Vieira's comments, and one, he is completely wrong when he says there's no encroachment of the garage onto my property. It comes over the fence on the north side. It hangs over by 5 meters. The east rock, it is clear from the street. You can tell that the garage that was built, I do not know when. This is before I moved into this house. The garage, let's say it's been built 6-7 years. It clearly overhangs onto my property, which obviously devalues my property and enhances the value of their property. So that wouldn't be a concern ordinarily if we haven't had issues with the neighbors. They have right of access to, I believe it is 3 feet wide to 6 feet in the back. However, it's not a mutual drive. They cannot drive through the driveway to their property. I am just concerned whether or not the new house that will be built if members of the committee can take a second look and just make sure that there will be no overhang onto my property, concerned about lighting, and so on. What we did receive, I think it was in 2016, from the City of Toronto was a notification that there were plans to add a second floor to the back of the bungalow that was at 14 Rockcliffe, and nothing was sent to us after that. So, you know, right now we're dealing with crumbling walk. They'll have to put in some kind of retaining wall because the driveway is crumbling. We had nothing but dust coming over because it was just an empty lot all summer. And, you know, they have an issue with termites. The what is left of their foundation has many termites in there. We've had to call in the service, termite service, to deal with the situation on our side of the property of this place. So there are issues regarding, you know, what's next. Will there be encroachment onto my property? Are we still gonna have an issue with, you know, the owners insisting that they have a right to park in my driveway when in fact they have a separate entrance on Marshall to their property and their garage? Currently, I believe they have three structures: the garage, brick garage, shed, 2 sheds on their property. I have no issues with what they want to build. I wish them well, but I just want clarification as to what they intend to do. Will it affect my property? And how can I ensure, can someone tell me how I can ensure that there's no overhang from the new house that they intend to build?
You mean the overhang of the garage roof or eaves goes onto your property?
Absolutely, 5 meters.
Okay, we'll hear from Mr. VR, but also, so you were around, Ms. Rowe, and back in 2016 when they came to committee. I don't know if you participated in the hearing, but Mr. VR is saying it was more or less, those additions were more or less exactly the same as what he's proposing to build now as new, is because, you see, because they no longer characterize as an addition because of the, I guess they claim, you're saying the whole house was demolished over the Easter weekend. They're claiming that they took walls down, and in order to have it as an addition, you have to keep up 50% plus the walls. And if more than that comes down, either inadvertently or on purpose, it's then recharacterized as a new build. So that's what happened here. But he's telling us it's the exact same thing. So did you object to, were you around? Did you get notice of that application in 2016? I assume you were the owner of that property next door at the time?
That is correct. I did get a notification, a letter from the city, and I had no objection because it was supposed to be an addition to the back of the building. So my contractor person said at the time, basically, this would not interfere with the lighting. The plans that were submitted were in line with, no encroachment on this property. He had no concerns, therefore I had no concerns.
Okay.
That went out the window. So what I am saying is, whether by accident or planning, I do not know what is in Mr. Vieira's mind. I am not accusing him of anything. My only concern is the effect it will have on my property. And I maintain that their garage that was built, I don't know when, prior to 2015, does in fact encroach on my property.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear about him that in rebuttal. Mr. Vieira, I want to hear from you because you basically told us that you're basically replicating, and we don't have that application, but staff can check, that you're basically replicating the same structure that was going to be built as a series or one addition, or the neighbor says just a rear addition. So now that you're building a new house, are you doing anything more than, I don't have the numbers of what the FSI is or the GFA. Let's see, I'm assuming you have out of your 10 variances, I'm sure one of them is for the
No, we don't have an FSI
Okay, you don't have
variance.
an SF,
We-
so I'm saying, is there,
N-
you're
No,
standing by the fact that whatever you're building now is the same as what you were building as a series of additions in 2016,
correct,
that you have approval?
correct.
I see there is none.
Yes, and the original building permit for the garage, it was back in 2011. It was building permit 214867. I did those drawings and I applied for that building permit. That garage was inspected and checked by building inspector as part of the 2016 Committee of Adjustments application. The same garage and the same variances were part of that application. And the two variances that differ from our current application was that we had a height difference to the finished first floor. So it was proposed to be 1.69 meters to the finished first floor instead of the 1.2 meters, which now we've eliminated that variance because since we are doing a new house, we can dig down and not have to have a variance for that. And previously, the 0.99 FSI was also added to the first and second floor area because the height difference from established grade to first floor from the basement was higher. Therefore, the area counted. So the length, width of the house, the proposed north side yard setback of 1.34, its existing condition, we're allowed to have 1.2. On the south side, we're proposing a variance of 0.45, which is the existing footprint of the current dwelling that is there. So there is absolutely no change to the footprint of this house. If anything, it is only lower in height. It is closer to the ground. Roof slopes are the same. There's absolutely no changes made to this application versus the previous one that was approved earlier this year with the building permit. The difference is more than 50% has been changed. It's basically a new house. New foundations will have to go in. Yes, we're aware of termites. There's going to be new foundations. They're going to have to treat soil for that. There is, no encroachments from proposal work being done there that could adversely impact the adjacent neighbor. The inspector too would be on site. They will have to do an as-built survey, even though we got a newer one done, to prove that the footprint is according to the plans. So there's no foul play. This is simply because the contractor took it upon himself to be taken down more than 50% because they were not in good condition. And, here we are. So there's no attempt or foul play in terms of my clients in trying to change the size, height, or the setbacks of the proposed dwelling. It's exactly the same as previously approved in 2016.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vieira. So you're basically, I think maybe the neighbor, you're telling me for sure there is no encroachment per se in across the lot line. I think maybe if you look at variance 10, maybe what it says is the encroachment is into the building setback, not across the property line. So although you encroach into the normal or the required bylaw building setback,
Yes.
you don't cross the property line.
No, we do not.
Okay.
And that's because of the existing setbacks to that existing garage, right? So even if there's, let's say they've got a downspout that's discharging water, that's not allowed. Zoning would make them, redirect, take the downspout onto their property. So, we're relying on the fact that it's an existing structure that is there, but at the end of the day, once they get a building permit, if there is any change or any impact that they're discharging water to adjacent neighbors, that'll be done through our grading plan because we will have to submit a new drainage plan to ensure that there's no issues on that side. And encroachments are not permitted, so they can't be putting that over a neighbor's property line. So my clients would have to rectify that. And I know that the face of wall, as shown on our site plan, it was based on the survey. There's no encroachment there. So they would have to mitigate any of those situations. But the idea is that, trying to get approval for a current house that was previously approved, notwithstanding the fact that it's regarded as a new dwelling.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any questions for Mr. Vieira or for Ms. Rowe? Or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Anybody listening would like to make a motion if there are no further questions? It seems to me that this is an obvious case where we have to trust what's being said here. The walls came down and the building was rebuilt. This has been reviewed by zoning again before we have variances. So I'm ready to move for approval of the variances, find them minor in nature.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded for Ms. Bellissimo's motion. No seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion? Okay, if there's no seconder, then we need a new motion. Mr. Taylor.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at a Google Street View of the mutual driveway between 14 and 12 Rockcliffe Park. And I'm clearly seeing a garage that is extends quite close to number 12. So I tend to agree with the lady from number 12 that there's an issue here, and I really think this needs an updated survey to show exactly where that garage is, because what I'm looking at right now, there's an encroachment. I would like to see that that is not true. From what I'm looking at, it is true.
Mr.
If anybody wants to.
I think I know what the issue is, but I totally agree with Mr. Taylor that we should defer to get the proper paperwork, because I think there's confusion here between property line versus mutual right-of-way. And, you know, the right-of-way does not extend all the way to the garage. So the garage can in fact fit further back in that point. The house cannot. But
Correct.
you know, we're going through all of this without an updated survey in front of us. And for that reason, I believe we should defer this application.
So we have a motion, so that's a motion to defer. And Mr. Taylor, are you seconding that motion, or were you making that?
I'll second that, yep. I will second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Can we request that the prior decision be included in the application coming back to the committee?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that, Ms. Reddick.
Yes, we will include that in the next package.
Requesting that the prior decision be included when it comes back.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Okay, I'm opposed. The motion carries 4-1.
So Marco, we need
The
an
matter is
up-to-date
deferred.
survey showing everything that's on the site today.
Sure, we have that. We can send it to the office and hopefully reschedule this as soon as we can.
Well, you have to make sure that you don't have any new variances. Your site plan also has to be updated to reflect the new survey.
We have done all of that. All of that has been based on a brand new survey that was done a couple of months ago. We'll provide that to the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, very unfortunate that in terms of the workload, that we have 2 applications today. We spent over 20 minutes hearing each of them, and they ended up being deferred, which is not great for. It's not great, but okay, the matter is deferred, and we'll see you back here again.
Great.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I am, please
We deal
apologize.
with one that we didn't deal with that last deferral, so let's go and deal with that one next.
Okay,
Item number 37, 139 Lake Promenade.
yes.
It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage with 6 variances. The planning department requested in their consolidated memo to defer this to have adequate time for staff to review and make changes and all those wonderful things. In the additional materials, we were advised that notwithstanding the revisions in the yellow highlighted notice, which I would talk about, that planning deferral memo, they confirm still stands. They still would like to have it deferred, notwithstanding the revisions that were made. And this matter was also already deferred from the June 24th hearing. Urban Forestry is requesting variances 2 and 3. What else do we have here? Let's scroll down to the end. Yeah, we have supporting materials, TRCA, we have opposition, cover letter. So the agent is Adam Brown. As well, we have the two Long Branch Neighborhood Association representatives, tag team Christine Mercado and Andy Choles, to deal with, I guess, trees and the planning issues. But we have this deferral request. So is Mr. Brown there?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak today. If you have the slides that were submitted by the architect that are on file, and you could put that up, I think I could hopefully address this pretty quickly, but if you go to the very first slide, even just the site plan, and while you're going there, this is an application that, despite the original deferral being back in June, has been going on for over a year, well over a year. And the reason is it's has issues relating to ensuring that Conservation Authority requirements were all met and deferrals to do that, and it's been done. And many of the changes made responded to the Conservation Authority and Sabrina, who's the previous planner on the file when this application originated in the city. And following that, changes were made. So what you'll see on the outline before you is in yellow, the proposed outline of the new home. And a couple of things that are quite obvious is it's shorter than the homes next door, further from the shoreline than the homes next door.
Okay, sorry,
And-
Mr. Brown, before you continue, are we dealing just with the deferral request from planning? We're not
Yeah.
getting into the,
No, and the reason I'm doing this is because
yeah.
it's important to know all the changes that were made since the last deferral.
Okay, so the
length
question,
was
the question
reduced.
is, you're opposed to the further deferral?
We
Take
are
it.
definitely opposed.
Okay.
The only reason that showed in planning for the deferral was looking at the guidelines. And when I tell you about the fact that we've gotten rid of any variances for building length, depth, we comply with side yard setbacks, there's no building lengths to the front
Okay,
elevations.
so we're just dealing with the deferral because you're item number 37 and we'll have to wait your time in the queue. So the question is, you're opposed to the deferral?
We are
So-
definitely opposed.
Okay, so then we will proceed, I take it. You know, if you want to proceed, you're entitled to proceed and make your presentation. So we'll put this back into the queue. Now I feel less sorry for making you hang for a few more applications because you're going to have to wait anyway. Okay,
Thank you.
so we'll come back to this. So we are now back on item number 25. 24 has been deferred, so we're on to item number 25, 69 Willingdon Boulevard. And this is an application. Let's go back to the spot. It's convert the attic into habitable space. There's one variance for FSI and there's 6 letters of support, and that's all we have. And the speaker on item number 25, we have Babak Nagash, the agent, and the neighbor from 65 Willington with concerns or comments. Okay, so let's hear from the agent. Again, it's an application to convert the attic into habitable space, and there's only one variance.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Committee. I'm a member of committee. My name is Babak Nagash. I'm representing the owner on this application. Can you hear me?
Yes, so basically all you're doing is there no exterior changes. You're just converting the attic to livable space,
Yes,
which impacts
correct,
your floor
correct.
space index. And from the
Yes,
outside,
correct.
there's no gables or dormers being added. It's just making it into habitable space.
There will be a shed roof and dorm.
Okay, we see your plans here, your interior renovation. Right, okay. So is that dormer already existing or that's new? Mr. Nagash?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Yeah, sorry. So basically, we are not changing any footprint of the house. We adding a shed roof on the side with a dormer to the back of the house, and we are converting part of the attic to the livable space.
Okay. Let's hear from,
So
so let's hear from the neighbor and you'll have a chance to respond to any concerns. There's no concerns from city planning or
Sure.
anyone else. There's no arborist conditions or anything. No urban forestry. So let's hear from Laura Tomulka at 65.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, that's actually the owner of the subject property, not the owner of, not a neighbor.
Oh, so that's not 65, it's the owner of 69, the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have anyone here with concerns.
Mr. Chairman, we already addressed the neighbor's concern by replying to their emails this morning.
Okay, well, interesting, the owners are a whole whack of people. There's a whole bunch of names here that own it. One of them is a Johanna or Linda Joanna Tomulka. The letter was written, or the speaker is Laura Tomulka. I assume it's the same person. So she is one of the owners. Does she live at 65? Or is that a typo? And she's at 20. Like, did they own a couple of houses, including the house 2 doors away? I don't know if it's 2 doors away. Let me check my map. Yeah, it's 2 doors away. Okay, so 65 would be, so she's at 69. So there is no party here with concerns or in opposition. Committee members, any questions for the agent? If no questions for the agent, someone ready to weigh in with the motion?
Annie Bellissimo would like to move for approval. I find that the variances are minor in nature, that the sheds do not impact greatly on the existing condition. Find them acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. We have a seconder for that. Actually, there. Yeah. Actually, there is only one variance, right?
Yeah.
That's correct. Just one variance.
Yes. No, you said variances. So, okay, so we have a seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion. Ms. Reddick, sorry,
Okay.
to see you. Okay, all in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Nagash.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application is item number 36. Sorry, 26. Wish it was 36. 34 Belvedere Boulevard. It's to construct a 2-story rear addition, a partial 3rd-story addition, a rear yard deck, and a rear yard shed. And there are 7 variances. We have a cover letter, arborist report. Forestry is requesting a denial, or failing that, condition 2. Planning is recommending refusal. We have 10 letters of support, 2 letters of opposition from 84 and 99 Brentwood. We have speakers here from 99 Brentwood and a lawyer representing 99 Brentwood, so only one of them will be allowed to speak, as well as we have the neighbor at 21 Lindgrove. Okay, and the agent is Jennifer Scholes.
Hi,
Hello,
I'm Jennifer, and my address is 68 Wimbledon Road.
thank you. Okay, I think we need a presentation for you. You are aware of planning is recommending refusal of the application and the letters
Yes,
of
I am.
opposition in addition to your support letters?
Yes. The challenge we had with this project has been opposition from the adjacent west neighbor whose property is on a shallow corner lot. They're opposed to any obstruction, even partially of their rear principal bedroom window, by a proposed addition. Limitations to the length of the addition have resulted in a required partial 3rd floor addition to accommodate storage, and most importantly, an additional office area. The decision to build up rather than back was made to be mindful of these neighbors. Their view is therefore more of a concern than my client's privacy. Also, by maintaining a modest lot coverage, it has less of an environmental impact than height does. The official plan states that protecting Toronto's natural environment and urban forests should not be compromised by growth. This proposal allows for better stormwater management and tree growth. And after several months of discussion, the adjacent west neighbors do support the proposed plans. There is a letter in the file now from the lawyer that supports the application. So coverage wasn't a concern. I won't get into coverage. Height was a concern for planning. We reduced the height from 9.97 meters to 9.73. They asked for 9.5. So the rationale for the requested height variance is that the partial third floor will function as another office driven by the COVID-19 pandemic, and it needs to be usable space. Ceiling heights are not excessive, 9 feet at the ground, 8 feet at the second floor, and 7'6" at the partial third floor. The challenge with the height is that we're keeping the relatively high existing ground floor assembly in its current position because it is a renovation addition and not a new build. Therefore, the height variance is more difficult to eliminate. If we were building new, we would construct it so that the floor is closer to grade. Notable also is that only at the peak of the roof above the existing portion of the house is really at 9.73. The rear addition has a flat roof that complies with the bylaw. The proposed height is less than a foot higher than what is allowed, and it will be imperceptible from the street, a street where the houses are well set back from the road, making it even less noticeable than in other neighborhoods. There are 15 applications within 500 meters that were approved with a height that exceeded 9.5 meters. So we are in good company. The height of main walls at the front was actually eliminated when we eliminated the 3 dormers. So that was a revision that was applauded by planning. And what happened was we were somewhat misled in the sense that we dealt with a junior planner initially who indicated that they were satisfied with the variance, the reduction in height by meeting in the middle. But when he circled back with his senior planner and the manager, they wouldn't budge. They wanted the 9.5 meters. There are some other variances that aren't contentious, like side yard setback and roof eave projections. The parking space variance is also difficult to eliminate. It's actually related to urban forestry. There's a very unhealthy small calorie pear tree that was planted a few years ago that has never really thrived on the property. And urban forestry has a blanket policy about removal of their trees, regardless of their condition. We do have an arborist report that addresses this and are recommending the planting of a London plane tree, which is much more durable in this condition. And it's related, this variance is actually related to the width of the parking space, or sorry, the driveway. And the driveway is actually not a variance, the driveway width, but we are willing, if need be, to narrow the driveway to eliminate the removal of this tree. But if you look at the photo, which is being scrolled, I think you're scrolling down, I think you're gonna have to scroll up to see the image of that calorie pear tree. There it is. So if you zoom in on that a little bit, you'll see that the calorie pear tree has been pruned in an awkward way because it had a lot of dieback. And urban forestry, like I said, I did circle back with urban forestry as well, and they will accept a new tree planted if you accept the variance. So this variance is a little bit complicated because we really don't want to eliminate the parking variance because there's a mudroom proposed at the side with the side entrance allowing access to that mudroom. If we eliminate this variance, we will not be able to use the side door.
Yeah, Ms. Scholes, would you
And
like to
also-
wrap up, please? You're over 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Gross floor area was contentious too for planning, and we did reduce it from 76% to 72%. They wanted 70%. So we tried to satisfy their requirements, but again, they were not happy with what we came up with. And if there are any questions, we can talk about neighbors when the neighbors weigh in as they're part of this presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Scholes before you move on to hear from the neighbors? Okay. First neighbor listed is either Mr. or Mrs. Marr at 21 Lyngrove.
Hello, am I being heard? It's Rob Marr from 21 Lyngrove.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Oh, thank you. I guess our original comment was actually more to do with drainage and grading, and I understand that's part of the building process.
Yes.
So that really is disregarded in this meeting. And we became aware of sort of, I guess, maybe a further revision of the plans that our other neighbor and his legal letter addressed. And we, I guess, support that. I would call it fairly minor modification that's explained in that letter and its accompanying plans. So we have no further objections on this or anything.
Okay. Okay, no further objection. Okay, thank you, sir. So you were satisfied with the changes that were made. Next speaker is, well, we have one more speaker from 99 Brentwood. We have listed the owner as well as their agent, Mr. Cantor. So I assume Mr. Cantor is going to be speaking?
Actually, through you, it's actually going to be Ray who's going to be speaking.
Okay, so we do have Mr. Cantor's letter on behalf of Ray. And
hello, it's Ray Nepage, 99 Brentwood Road. And we would just, could I ask whether the letter that we have submitted has been distributed to the committee? So have they read it?
yes, sir. It's in our package,
Oh,
letter
okay.
dated September 21st, Mr. Cantor.
Okay, perfect. So I won't reread the letter other than to say that we came to the conclusion that on balance, the revised plans that were submitted to us met some of our most pressing concerns. And so we concluded on balance that we would support the revised design and not object to the variances requested.
Oh, okay. Very good. It's funny because I thought I heard Ms. Scholl say that and I said, well, we still have them present and they still have the letter. So good to clarify that. So just like your neighbor, the Mars at 21 Lyngrove, you're okay with the changes and you're no longer opposed.
Correct.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it. And we submitted the letter just because we thought it important to outline, why we were happy with the changes and also why we wouldn't want them to be precedent setting for other ones. They're unique to this situation.
Okay, but we do only have the one letter from Mr. Cantor where he requested to be refused.
Oh, sorry, then maybe.
Was there a second letter?
Maybe you do.
Yeah.
Yes, he had submitted, and it was posted on the site, the letter that outlined why we had withdrawn the objections.
Did anyone else see that letter? Yeah, we're sorry, Mr. Nepage, we don't have that letter, but it's a good thing you're present then because we thought this was being opposed by both neighbors, in particular you, who went out and hired a solicitor to represent you. So, okay, good to know. So, Ms. Scholes has been eagerly working on her rebuttal, and now she doesn't really have to have one. So, Jennifer, unless there's something you need to add, I don't think we have to go back to you. Thank you for your presentation. Committee members, any questions for Ms. Scholes, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied the variances requested meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you, sir. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Mr. Bellissimo, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Scholes. You have your approval.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, item number 27 is 29 Greenfield Drive. We have a yellow highlighted revised notice page, highlighted in yellow showing the changes. There were 2 variances. There is now 1. The proposed total floor area of the ancillary building has been withdrawn as a variance. They're now complying with the 60. This is to construct a new rear auxiliary structure, a cabana. And we have 2 covering letters, a previous decision from 2011 regarding a circular driveway. Planning has a condition of approval to construct as illustrated in the site on the revised site plan submitted September 13th as it relates to the proposed lot coverage, which is the only variance, and 4 letters of support. We have one speaker, Jim Mayer, the agent for the applicant.
Yes, I'm here, committee. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer any concerns.
Okay, yeah, very straightforward, and we can see the changes that were made and highlighted. You eliminated the other variance.
Yes.
So, okay, and 4 letters of support. Committee members, any questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I have a question that I guess is for staff. I'm wondering, the planning department requested a condition that the development be constructed as illustrated on the revised site plan submitted September 13th. And yet we now have revisions dated September the 21st. So I'm wondering if we need to make an adjustment to the planning department's condition.
No, I thought so myself, but what happened is they submitted the revised plans on September 13th with a waiver, and then they got the zoning review afterwards, but the plans are still September 13th.
Okay, well then I will, I'm satisfied the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I'll move approval subject to the Community Planning Department condition and Urban Forestry condition 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that? Ms. Ruddick?
Seconds the motion.
I saw Ms. Ruddick, hand went up first. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you for that, and you have your approval. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor.
committee.
Okay. Next application is item number 28, 9 Leicester Avenue. A 2nd-story addition above the existing dwelling and a 2-story rear addition to a top-up and a rear 2-story. We have only one variance, a roof eave projection, and it's 0.3 to 0.13. That's the only variance. Speaker is, I guess, the agents, Jays Raju Kanath or Faisal Ahmed. So I don't know who's speaking. Who do we have? And we have absolutely nothing on this application other than we have Urban Forestry number 3, condition 3. So it's the east lot line eave, roof eave projection. Looks to be pretty minor. Is the agents, who's here for the agent?
It's Mr. Kenneth.
Okay, Mr. Kenneth, you'd just like to weigh in, state your name and address for the record, please. You have to unmute yourself. Jays Raju Kenneth. It's anyway, there's not much to this. Committee members, there's only one very minor variance, the E projection.
Benny, but this is ready to make a motion if there's no comment from the applicant and no questions from the other members. It's obviously a very minor situation, Denise, so I would move approval for the variance subject to the condition by Forestry.
Okay, thank you. We have a seconder for that. Mr. Komarek. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Ms. Bartosik, with the fact that we didn't hear the agent weigh in, I don't know if he's on mute or if we didn't really need him, but.
Well, I think if the decision had gone another way, but we did try to reach him and the committee members had no questions.
Yeah,
so.
it's too bad there isn't a de minimis test where they don't even have to make an application. It's so minor. Okay, so we have that one, that we have that approval, so we can move on to the next application, which is item number 29, 90 Lakeshore Drive. It's a detached dwelling with an ancillary building cabana in the rear yard. There are 9 variances. We have revised yellow notice sheet showing changes to the application. We have the revised plans. We have opposition from 47 Emerald Crescent. We have an applicant submission and the additional materials, as well as 3 letters of support. And of the 9 variants in the revised, 3 variances have been revised downward. And as well as the area of certain, there seems to be numerous platforms here. So they reduced one of their platforms from 19.8 to 16.8. That's the 2nd-story rear platform. There's also a 2nd-story front platform at 7.2, a 3rd-story front platform of 4.4, and the 4th-story platform of 18 square meters. So that's there's like 4 in 1 on that variance. The applicant, the speaker, the agent for the applicant is Joe Sabatino, as well as we have 3 neighbors present, the neighbor right next door at 92 Lakeshore, the neighbor who wrote in at 47 Emerald, as well as the neighbor at 110th Street. So let's hear from Mr. Sabatino.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'll try to be quick on this one. This is an addition to an existing house. We're going to keep the foundation and work from there. The reason for the high numbers is that the basement, I mean, one of the owners has difficulty with stairs, so we tried to eliminate as many stairs as possible and put in an elevator. The reason for the high numbers is the basement is considered, because it's out of the ground and it's at a grade level, it's considered the main floor. So not only adding a floor to it, but also the gross floor area of the basement is added into the total. We did lower it slightly to 91% after conversations with planning, based on, he told us to basically look around the area. So we got 9010th Street that got approved from 93%. So this is 91% with the basement included. Without the basement, it's only 63% GFA on it. The reason for that is, the homeowners bought the property for the lake view. So that's the reason for all the balconies. Discussions with the neighbors, privacy seemed to be a concern. So all the balconies face the lake. None of the balconies are looking into the adjacent neighbors. If you look at the balconies, they only have a forward view, nothing on the side. Even the rear deck at the back. And keep in mind that the house in the rear is perpendicular to the property, and it's a 2-story house. So there really is no other neighbors that would be looking into this backyard. The reason for the heights is the rooftop patio. We have a stair access to the rooftop. So the heights, like we're at 9.5 meters to the top of the roof. So within the bylaws on that. They're calculating the extra 2.5 meters is because of the stair access on top of the roof. Other than that, we talked to the neighbors regarding, I know they had some issues with some other properties in the area. The rooftop balcony is set back in the center of the roof. So in no time will it be anybody up there be in view of the neighbors, or will they be able to look down? We kept the staircase portion of the rooftop access to the middle of the roof. So if you look at the title page, page 1, I guess that would be, of the revisions, it's just a simple 2-story building, the look of it. And whether the basement is included in the GFA or if we lower it, would have no impact whatsoever on the shell of the building. It would still look the same, except we'd have a ridiculously high basement. And in the rear view, if you look at the rear view, other than that little square on top that where the staircase comes up, the roof hides anybody up there, so there, it's not going to be a lookout point for anybody on that, other than, like I said, the view of the lake. That's the reason the homeowners bought the property, and they want to take full advantage of that. We talked to the neighbors. I canvassed as many as I could. Obviously, I missed number 47, but for number 47 is a 3-story house, and it's next block over. And there's 2 properties in between her and the our rear yard. So, and there's a 2-story house blocking the view. So it shouldn't, I don't see how that would have an impact on her view or anything. The immediate impact would be to the two adjacent neighbors, and they have no objections to the variances. I've discussed with them what we're doing. They have no objections to it. And, they're the immediate impact, it would be them, and they have no objections to it.
Well,
No,
sir,
it's,
yeah, sir, yeah, you can, you have another half a minute, but can I have maybe he's registered to speak in support. The neighbor at 92 is registered to speak. Maybe he's speaking in support, but that's not your direct neighbor?
92 is direct neighbor, I believe, yes.
Right. He's here to make comments. Are they, do you know if they're in support, or maybe he does have concerns? He hasn't written a letter, but he's here.
I hope they're in
Okay,
support.
we'll find out. We'll find out. And I apologize, Mr. Sabatino. When I'm doing my summary or my introduction, I missed two very important points. Urban Forestry is recommending refusal, and planning is recommending refusal as well. In terms of the balconies, so I guess you have front and rear balconies, but I guess they're all sort of oriented for views on the lake, whether they're front or back.
They're all facing the lake. None of them have any view into the neighbors.
Okay. Okay, so you're aware of the planning recommendation to refuse the application. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
you were aware of that, 'cause
I did have some discussions.
Yeah,
I did have discussions with planning.
Yep.
And we made, I was under understanding that we had an agreement on the changes, and that's why I made the changes. We put in the revision, but their comment seems to reflect the original variances. So I'm a little confused there as to
what's the date? The date of this memo is September 21st. You're right. They talk about. Do we know if they're say some of
they're
they're
still
not
talking about the-
satisfied, or all their comments? They go through a bunch of bullet points to identify the concerns.
And
One
those
I
are-
know,
those
the one
are
I
variances
noticed is the
within the
GFA of one times coverage, which you have brought down. So perhaps
right, and the stairs, the front
so
staircase.
staff,
and some of
Madam
the-
Bertozzi, what do we do with this? Looks like the comments are prior to the additional changes that were made. Again, the changes were made are shown in yellow, so the only one is basically the pedestrian entrance height in variance 5, the size of one of the balconies, and the FSI brought down from 1 times coverage to 0.91. So we don't know that they've reviewed this or that they would be satisfied. So I guess we have to.
Well, I sent
correspondence.
I
So you
sent
haven't spoken to
correspondence.
community planning on the last application. If you were listening, then applicant made changes, but then staff went on to say, well, these changes don't go far enough. So that is often the case. So I think we possibly have to assume that. Ms. Bartosik, what do you, we don't have any communication from planning?
Yeah, because the time in between when the applicant submitted the revisions, planning may not have had a chance to review it, or they may not have thought that it was sufficient enough to address their concerns.
Yes, sometimes they
So,
send a memo and they say our letter still stands, notwithstanding the changes.
Yeah.
In this case, it was, the memo's dated September 21st, so you can't, it's not like it was made in June or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's then hear from, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sabatino at this time, or let's go and hear from the neighbors? Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Lyons at 47 Emerald Crescent, who wrote the letter. And perhaps we can hear from them, whether the further changes, I assume they wrote their letter September 21st, the same day as the planning department, whether their view has changed by the 3 changes that were made as shown and highlighted in yellow.
Sorry,
So
through
we'll
the
be hearing
chair.
from Mr. and Mrs. Lyons.
So actually, we don't have either of them on the line right now.
Oh, okay.
We do have Robert, though.
Okay, so Robert Brigham right next door at 92. And we don't know if he's in support or opposed because the agents seem to think that they had the approval of both adjacent neighbors. Mr. Brigham?
Hello. Yes, I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm getting confused what's happening, what planning has seen and hasn't seen. I got the new papers for all the floors several days ago, and they certainly made changes that I've asked concern about, particularly with the office originally being on the 4th floor, which is no longer there. So we thank them
Sorry,
for
sir, I'm
that.
having trouble hearing you. Can you try speaking a little, projecting a little louder or something? So what's no
Yes.
longer on the 4th floor?
There was an office originally on the 4th floor. That is no longer there. So the balcony on the 4th floor has been set back, so it's not going to be looking down on our property. I still have concerns I want to express, making to absolutely confirm that our mutual drive, the full width, is going to be there for the 75 feet. I know that the contractor said, yes, it will, but I'm looking to the exact ends. There's also a tree in the front lawn that has to be, city property has to get a bit moved to the east. I'm concerned about a big tree like that being moved and still being located close to our property, the opposite side of the driveway. That's why that tree needs to be replaced. Why it can't be planted with a new tree that's going to grow into the ground. Because a big tree with all those roots being moved several feet with a big wind coming from the east off the lake, could be dangerous.
So are you in favor of the application? Are you okay with it? They have reduced the GFA from 1 times to 0.91. They've changed the pedestrian entrance height, and they've changed the size of one of the platforms. The second-story rear platform has gone down by 3 meters in size to 16.8
It's
meters.
still a big building, but we can live with it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Brigham?
Bingham.
Okay, there's a typo here. Bingham. They're missing the I.
B-I-N-G.
B-I-N-G-H-A-M. It looked like it was B-R-I. Okay, my apologies, sir. Does
No
anyone have
problem.
any questions for the neighbor? Okay, if not, there's one other neighbor, Angela Girardi at 110th Street. Registered to speak. I'm not trying to see where she is in relation to the property either. It doesn't show in my location.
So through
map.
you, Mr. Chair, we actually don't have Angela on the line either.
Okay. I don't even know where 110th Street is in relation because my map, the property map doesn't go out further, so. Okay, so Mr. Sabatino, can you, you have the, we haven't heard, the Lions weren't here, but we do have their letter in the package. We have the community planning comments of refusal and the urban forestry refusal. So if you can please, you made your presentation, but we've heard from Mr. Bingham who is in support. We haven't really heard orally from someone in opposition, but if you could respond to the Lions letters if they read it out here, then at least you have something to rebut. Plus the community planning, which you're aware of when you made your presentation, but if you want to touch on that, I have no objection.
Okay, well, as for the neighbor, like I said, it's 47 Emerald. That's a 3-story house, and there's 2 properties in between that go perpendicular to the property. If you look at the survey, we've got 1 2-story house right behind us. Then there's a bungalow. Then there's Emerald, the rear yard.
Yeah.
So I doubt that from her windows or anything she can, the view would impact her at all. I doubt she can even see the property, maybe a bit of it, but there's 2 stories. There are 2.5 stories houses on either side of us, so it's not like we're going to stand out like a sore thumb between bungalows. Like I said, it's that rooftop patio that's giving us that major variance on the height, which only is actually the staircase access on the roof, and the fact that the main or the basement floor is being considered into the gross floor area, which brings the numbers to 91%. We're actually if you discount that, we're at 63%. So it's not a big house at all. If you look at the Like I said, the title page, the drawings, it's a 2,200 square foot house
So
with a
here-
rooftop patio to
so
take
wh-
advantage
wh-
of the lake.
Why are you building the basement so far out of the ground that it counts as a floor?
The owner's father has issues with stairs. If you notice, we put in an elevator and we tried
Right,
to
but-
eliminate as many stairs as possible to avoid
know-
with these narrow houses, there's a lot of up and downs on them, right?
Yeah, but it is a new build, so when you have
No,
an
it's-
existing, like
it's not
if
a
it's
new
out of the
build.
ground, it counts as a floor. It counts as a floor. It projects as a floor, and then you have like a four. So it's a 4-floor rather. It looks like 4 stories rather than 3 stories. Never mind 2 stories, which is probably the prevailing character. So
It's
my
not a new
que-
build.
Sorry.
It's not a new build. It's an addition. We're keeping the foundation.
Oh, am I on the? Okay. Well, it says to construct a new
But
detached
but
dwelling
because
with
we're taking
accessory
down
building.
more than 50%, it's considered a new build, but it's an addition.
Okay.
Because of the construction logistics and the mutual driveway, it's going to be very hard to dig a
Okay.
hole there. So we're keeping the
All I'm
foundation.
saying is, for whatever reason, if you choose to build it out of the ground and it's not just an existing condition, you can change the foundation. Then you have to deal with the the chips as they fall.
Correct. And that's why we're here.
I guess one of your terraces, the one on the second floor, is technically a first floor, right? Because it comes
Correct.
off your kitchen, whatever. Anyway, okay. So we do have that opposition letter, and in fairness to, I'll speak for Ms. Lyons, who's not here. She goes through the math 4 times, more than double, more than 4 meters. She doesn't say that the impact is on her. She says surrounding neighbors. So in fairness to her, she didn't talk about the particular impact on her. I guess she's entitled to make general comments, should she wish to do so. Committee members, any questions then for Mr. Sabatino, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I find this to be a very reasonable project and quite in keeping with the immediate context. I move approval, subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 3.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Mr. Bellissimo?
Yes, I would
Okay,
second the motion.
all in favor? Okay, opposed? Motion carries 3-2. The application is approved.
Thank you very much.
With Ms. Ruddick and myself dissenting. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sabatino, and thank you to Mr. Bingham. Okay, our next application is item number 30, 27 Glenaden Avenue East. It's a 2-story rear addition and a new rear deck. There are 2 variances, and we have absolutely nothing on file on this application. Sorry, we have urban forestry number 4, but nothing else. Speaker for this application is William Hall, agent. Mr. Hall, welcome.
Mr. Speaker, members of the committee, my name is Bill Hall, architect, design architect at 12 Mill Cove here in Etobicoke. I'm representing the homeowners, Brody and Nicole Cahill. They're attempting to build an addition to their existing home that they've lived in for a number of years. They have growing children. It's a familiar story.
Yes, sir. I
of
don't
course.
believe we need a presentation from you on this application. There is absolutely nothing
Okay.
before us. I just missed, there is also a letter of support from the next door neighbor at 29. So a cleaner application you couldn't find in terms of there's no comments.
The only
You're
thing
you're aware there, should ask you, you're aware of the urban forestry condition?
I am aware of it, and the condition actually is to defer, and and we do not wish to defer this.
Oh, okay.
In fact, if you'd like me to speak to the urban forestry concerns, I'm
Oh.
happy to do that.
Yeah, perhaps why don't you do that then? I didn't realize it was a deferral request.
They're actually asking for a deferral request, which frankly puzzles me. From day one, there's an enormous tree in the rear yard of this home. It's a lovely tree, and everyone involved wants to keep it thriving. So it was obvious from day one that we were going to be having to deal with urban forestry and a permission to injure. And the very first move I recommended is that we get an arborist involved. And before even design began, the arborist was offering their insights and their opinion about the doability of even doing any kind of an addition. During the design process, they were heavily involved in design options. And in the end, I think that the actual, I won't speak to you as arborists, but I think if you look at the basement plan, I suspect urban forestry didn't get that far, because the basement plan, a significant amount of what would be the coverage of the house is in fact on sonotube piles, and it should have no impact at all on the root system. So I think that this is, and our arborist concurs, that this is a very, very doable project, and we should be allowed to proceed and deal with urban forestry as we need to do.
Okay. Sir, yeah, you mentioned an arborist report. We don't seem to have one as part of the package. But
We had an
we have your
arborist
explanation that you wish to retain this tree, and the tree should not be affected based on what is proposed here. So
Yes.
we can take that. Ms. Bartosik, do we have some, is there an arborist report in the file? It doesn't show in our package.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Okay, committee members, any questions for the agent? And if not, is someone ready for a motion?
Danny Belissimo is ready to make a motion. If anyone has any questions. I know the street very well. I go by it every week, and this house is very modest and in keeping with the character of all the neighboring homes. So I'd like to move for approval of the variances and no conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Uh,
Komorik?
I'd like to do a friendly amendment and add condition 2 for forest.
Forestry condition 2. That's forestry condition 2?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. That's acceptable, Mr. Bellissimo?
Sorry, condition 2 is to remove not to remove a private tree? Condition 2 to remove a private tree.
Not to remove, but to protect a private tree.
I thought, okay, but clarification from staff, then is that your interpretation?
So, yes.
It's okay. Can I weigh in it's the alternative proposal from planning that they say if we approve, then they recommend that condition in their planning.
Oh, you mean forestry, not planning, right?
The forestry, that's why I clarified, is it
Yeah,
forestry?
you can't
Forestry 2.
Well,
So the amendment.
I think Mr. Kermick's right. He says here, despite urban forestry recommendation, committee approves the variances. Urban forestry requests the variance be subject to the following: submission of a complete application for a permit to injure or remove a privately owned tree. But that's not what the applicant wants to do. He wants to protect the tree. So I think you're right. We don't want to give him the option to do that. He said he doesn't want to do that. So what's the option where they're going to protect the tree, or not, that they take steps
That
to
is the option.
and pay LC.
Because it's a permit to injure or remove. So even if they want to protect and keep the tree, there still might be some injury to it.
Okay.
And they need a permit before they can
Okay,
do
well,
it.
thanks for that clarification. If you're telling us
I would
it's
agree
number
with that
2, it's
because
number 2.
I'm fine with number 2 then,
Okay.
since Barbara.
Okay,
framed
all in
that.
favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next application is item number 31, 1617 Keele Street. This is for a new front porch and a new detached garage in the rear yard. There are 2 variances. We have a cover letter and nothing else whatsoever, and there is no urban forestry on this one. So the speaker is Eddie Perez, as well as we have, it looks like the owners present, just listening in. So we're going to hear from Mr. Perez, I take it, and not the owners.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I'm here on behalf of the owners.
Yes, we have your cover letter. Very straightforward. We do not need a presentation. Is there anything you'd like to advise the panel members of before I take it in and see if they have any questions for you?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Perez? And if no such questions, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Sure, it's Stan Kamara. I'd like to leave the application to be minor and meeting the 4 tests, and therefore I'd like to move approval with no conditions.
Thank you, sir. Seconder for that?
Simone?
Okay, thank you, Danny. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez. I think that's
Thank
the
you. Have
last
a
one
good
for you
evening.
this afternoon, so we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a
Okay,
good evening.
committee members, with everyone's indulgence, let's take a 10-minute break till 4 p.m., at which time we'll come back and hear the balance of the applications. Okay. Okay, is everyone back? I see Dawn, Stan, and Sophia. Oh, here she comes. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Item number 32, 12 Sweetland Road, an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, a previous committee of adjustment application approved in May 2021. Variance relating to lot coverage, floor space index, soffit height, front and side exterior main wall height, and now they're looking for an additional, I guess they had a floor space index, but it's now higher. They permitted as 0.45 at the previous committee. They achieved approval at 0.58 times the lot. Now they need 0.6, so an additional 12 square meters. And we have a signpost declaration and an arborist report, and that's all we have. Speaker on this application is Arbin Spati, the agent, and as well the owner is on the line as well.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we actually are on hold for Arvin. That's what the beeping is. So I don't know if should I put the owner on instead?
Okay, if the owner's there.
Yeah, hold on. There's the owner.
Mr. Vanny.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Vanny.
Yes. I can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you heard my introduction. So we have the previous decision back from May 2021, and you now need an extra 0.2 of FSI. What did that occur?
My understanding is when this first came to the Committee of Adjustment, came with a so-called rider. I'm not very familiar with the technical terms.
A waiver.
A waiver, I'm sorry, not rider, waiver. And then when we went after the Committee of Adjustment allowed for all variances, the zoning identified an additional variance, which is the 0.02 index. And that because they wouldn't allow for garage space more than a certain amount of area. So the garage, the way it is designed, I don't have the materials in front of me because I was prepared that my agent will speak to it.
Yeah.
It is basically, let's say, I'm just taking a number. The rules, the zoning allows only for, let's say, 45 square meters, and we have 48 or 50. So that the zoning said, no, you have to take it off the building. That's all there is to it.
Okay, so it's an extra 12 meters. That's basically what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I want to see if committee members have any questions for you. And if not, if someone's ready to weigh in with a motion. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is virtually identical to what this committee approved 4 short months ago.
Yeah.
I presume that the rationale at that time is the same as it is today. The application meets the 4 tests, and I move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion. Mr. Bellissimo, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Vanny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, item 33, A, B, and C has been deferred, so we move over to item number 34. The same agent, so hopefully Mr. Spati's here for this one, because this is an opposed one. Item number 34, 16 Daisy Avenue. It's to legalize and maintain a rear deck under construction.
Mr. Chair, it sounds like he's still on hold. Do you want to go on to 35?
Okay, let's do 35. Number 35, 32 Vassar Drive. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 3 variances. We have 7 letters of support, 7 letters of opposition. Planning is recommending refusal. There have been revisions made, which community planning summarizes in their report, but they feel it is still not adequately, doesn't address adequately the concerns of planning staff. Although they do say it is an improvement. And Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2, and that's all we have. Registered speakers on this application is David Johnson, the agent, as well as the neighbor at 34 Vassar, an agent for the neighbor at 3950 14th Avenue, or that's his address. I guess we'll find out who he's representing. And the neighbor at 35 Lloyd Manor Road. So first is David Johnson.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, there's also 3 more speakers on that application.
Oh, I have to turn the page, you're right.
Yes.
33 Lloyd Manor Road, 30 Vassar, and 25 Beaver Brook. So unfortunately, in the non-virtual world, when you have so many people speaking, they get together, appoint a spokesperson or 2, or the most directly affected. But in the virtual world, we hear from everyone. So just ask the speakers that if in opposition, if you not to repeat comments that other people have made, if they've already made it, to try to and perhaps not take your full 5 minutes if necessary, or if possible. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to make a presentation to committee.
Okay, very quickly, I'm David Johnston. I am an architect and I am speaking on behalf of the application. We can summarize very quickly. I know it's later in the day for everybody. Essentially, the owner of the property has met with various neighbors, neighbors who agree, neighbors who disagree. So there have been conversations, and a few things have changed. Certainly, the application has changed somewhat from when it was first put in. And just so everybody knows, I think the applicant was a little bit apprehensive because of the COVID-19, and that's really the reason for the delay in time. There was no other specific reason. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
basically, our
just point out
variance.
that I didn't know anything. This matter was before the committee in July 22nd, and it was deferred. What was the reason for that deferral?
I'm not certain, sir. I'm not.
Probably to
I'm not privy to
make
that.
these changes and get them to reconsider. And they've
Yes,
made the
yes.
changes.
I think that the reconsiderations have been a number of times, and I think everybody is on our side trying to work to something which is amenable to most of the community, and not far off perhaps what the urban design staff were recommending. So on variance number 1, it's simply an increase of about 11% on a percentage basis over what is permitted. The house still is in the range of slightly around less than 3,000 square feet of usable space. And remember, the garage isn't counted. And number 2, the space index. Staff indicated that 0.57% was reasonable. Our clients would like to keep the size of the house, which is not really excessive in the world that we all live in these days, and they're prepared to make another change to the point of 0.61. And
So
as
sorry,
far
before,
as-
sir.
Yeah.
If are you
Yeah.
changing that officially? You're willing to reduce that to 0.61?
We are changing, sir. Yes, we are changing it officially. I should.
So how many
I should have
square meters
clarified
is that? What does that translate to? It's not how much less than 298.5?
If you give me a moment or two, I'll recalculate.
Okay,
Perhaps
perhaps
we
you can
could
do
just-
that while the neighbors are speaking. Okay, so we don't
I
waste
was
any
gonna-
time.
I was going
Okay?
to suggest that. Yes.
Yeah, you'll have to listen
Okay.
to the neighbors
And
too.
and number 3 is really the height of the soffit, and we've asked for a variance of about 10 inches, which in reality is 2%. So in terms of how you wish to discuss the matter, the client is amenable to further discussions, and I think it's probably wise for the committee to hear the comments from the public.
Certainly. I just point out that this matter was in fact deferred. It says July 22nd minutes and the July 30th, which I don't think we normally have hearings 8 days apart. So was this before us twice? And were those
Yes, it
reports?
was last year, and we did actually happen to have
Oh, it's
hearings a
2020,
week
that's
apart.
why. The first one was 2020, and then July is, no, they're both July 2020.
Yeah, they were both. I checked. I had the same thought. I double checked it. It is correct.
So we had a meeting 8 days apart? Okay, I don't remember that, but anyway. Okay, so, okay, so sorry, Mr.
Mr.
Johnson,
Chairman,
you can continue.
yeah, I was just going to say, we've done the calculation as to, at 0.61, the total square footage would be 3,110 square feet. And I can convert that to metric if you would like to have it.
That's the way they do it, so probably a good idea.
I'm just trying.
Okay, so
And that would be 288.9.
Okay,
square meters.
288.9.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess you're approaching your 5-minute mark. If you'd like to just add something to sum up, and we'll hear from the neighbors.
I think the client has demonstrated the willingness to discuss with their neighbors, and I think it's time to hear from them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Johnson before we go on to the neighbors? Okay. First speaker is Sam Wu, agent, and we'll hear who he's representing. I believe he was present on the other times it was before the committee.
Sorry, through you, Chair, that's actually another agent for the application, so they will not be speaking.
Oh, I see.
34
He's together with Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so then the next speaker is the neighbor from 34 right next door, Yao Yao or Yao Zheng? Yan Zheng. Who's speaking?
Yan Zheng, can you guys hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm living at 34 Basar Drive, so I'm in the closest property to this proposed.
Yeah, can you try? We're having trouble. I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you try to enunciate and speak a little closer to the microphone, or?
Sure.
And you are,
Sure.
what's your name?
My name is Yan Zheng.
Okay.
So I live at 34 Basar Drive.
Yep.
So I'm in a closest property to this proposed build. If we look at where the largest variants are, they are the floor space and the lot coverage. Then, so for the floor space, the standard is 45%. The highest on the street is 57%. And they asked for 66% in their original application. Now revise it down to 63%. So from 66 to 63, it's less than 5%
Yeah,
reduction.
Ma'am, if you were listening, he now has reduced it to 0.60.
We didn't say that. We didn't say that.
No, he
in
just said that
maybe-
in his, if you were listening to his submissions, Mr. Johnson just said they're prepared, and he's officially lowering it to 60.60, which equals 288.9 square meters. So he's making a further reduction.
Still, there's leaks like 35% deviation to standard. And apparently their intention of building a massive house remains unchanged. So, I mean, they're just testing our tolerance level, like it's 63 and we're not agree and 60, and then next one, maybe they get to 57, right? So I think I read upon a staff report saying that this the floor space index variance being requested is not in keeping with the general purpose and intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, therefore recommended to refuse. So I think the facts here are largely unchanged compared with their first proposal. So this particular reason for refusion should still apply. And I can expect the second point I want the committee to be aware of is that because my house is sitting in a particular direction of the proposed lot, the shade caused by the new build will significantly impact the natural light. So the new build will cover all of my gardening area, part of my backyard, and half of the deck. Even if, I say, I don't mind to sacrifice my outdoor space, I can just have my kids playing on the other side of the backyard. There's one room in my house that I'm extremely concerned. The room is an extension of the original house and was built to be a room with windows from ceiling to floor on all sides. We use it a lot. We have 3 meals a day there. My family rests on the couch there. essentially serves as a dining room and a family room. So if you go to page 2 of my objection letter, there is some graphs there. It's a shadow study that was prepared by Sam Wu, a colleague of David and their designer. If I assume this shadow study is a fair representation of the impact of the new build to my house, I say I assume because I have a side story about this report. The first version of this report was prepared to the benefit of the owner. So the scale was not right. So it appeared that the impact of the shadow was huge, but not as bad as what is shown in the current version. So a request for revision, regardless of the human error was intentional or unintentional. So for now, let's assume it's a fair view. And this study tells me that throughout the year, there are 270 days that my family will have to eat and spend our leisure time in the shadow for 2/3 of the daytime. The effect even worse in colder seasons if you look at the graphs for December 22nd, which is supposed to illustrate the impact in the winter. So in the winter months, the sunlight is, when the sunlight is more desired, the room will be completely in shade for entire day. So this not only impacts my enjoyment of my house when I own it, but if I were to sell it someday, any potential buyer will easily notice this and put a significant discount because of the room, which is supposed to be sunny and bright, completely lose its purpose. And there are some other observations here. Is like on the last page of the objection letter, the site plan. So the site setback standard was set to be 1.5 meter in the original application, but now this time they revised it to 1.2. So I don't know what has changed that could change the standard they should adhere to. Looking at the site plan, it said the site setback is 1.22 meter, and there is a part that sticks out, which I circled in red, the last page of my objection letter. So which is circled in red there, that part sticks out. So it seems when they calculate that 1.22 meter, they didn't take into account of that part. So I feel that this proposal should benefit from a pre-examiner. So there are some support letters as well. If you look carefully to check where they're from, there's only one that is within 60 meters of the application, who also has a big house. And the rest of them are from property owners who live like 300, 500 meters away from his property. And those opinions are not as relevant to this case. And however, the objection letters are from neighbors who live within the 60
Yeah,
meters.
ma'am, can you
and they
please,
are
you're over 5 minutes. Can you please wrap up? Because we have a lot of speakers. So if everyone goes.
So I'm
to
done
5.
here. I'm done here.
Yeah, so we have very good substantive letter, which you've outlined and gone through. So, yeah, he's brought it down. I think you were reading out of the part at 0.57. So he's brought it down from 6.3 to 6, which is 10 square meters off. So if he came down another 10 meters, 288 to 277 or 278, would there be a big difference on the impact? I understand there is impact on you. So anyway.
I don't think there's a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to say they to show me a new version of the shadow study, but based on and also it's how that a building is designed. It's designed as the first floor and second floor of the same size. So like if they don't have they don't need so many washrooms on the second floor or don't have a laundry on the second floor, maybe that second floor would be smaller and the shadow will be smaller as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Zhang? Okay, if not, let's go to the next speaker. Saveria Mastrella at 35 Lloyd Manor Road.
You hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my biggest concern with this
Can you
house
state
is
your
that-
name and address for the record to start
Sure.
off, please?
Yeah, Saveria Mastrella, 35 Lloyd Manor Road.
Thank you.
So as the first speaker was saying that, the size of the house isn't big for nowadays, that's fine. But for this area, it's too big. The amount of the land that will be occupied by the house is huge. I'm not going to go into like dimensions and stuff, but the building will be going out so far back into their backyard that it's going to obstruct our privacy. just the way the owners want to enjoy their new house, enjoy their, sunlight and stuff. We too want to enjoy our houses that we've been here for 30 years enjoying our house, but now they want to come in and take away. They want to enjoy their house, but at the expense of all the neighbors. And I'm also concerned with the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and flip-flopping of what is going to be done with those rooms. My first question to the owner was, are you going to be a homestay? A homestay is someone that takes in international students and receives a monthly fee of over $1,000 a month for the children to stay there, the students. We're centrally located. Transit is available to all the major universities and colleges in the area. I don't have a problem with them building the house. The problem is I want them to stay, to follow the bylaws, the guidelines there. They were there for a reason, and they should be followed. Thank you.
Thank you. And ma'am, it looks like you're 35, so you're one house removed in the backyard, right?
Yes, you can see, yeah, you can see everything, especially with the 8 windows.
The 33 is right behind, and you're 31.
35.
35, right. Okay, so you're 35. I see where you are. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Mistrella before we move on to the next speaker? Okay. Next speaker, Carol Walker at 33 Lloyd Manor. So that's the homeowner directly behind, right next door to the last speaker. Ms. Walker? Okay. Okay, the next one is in the next door neighbor, 30, Neil Boulanger.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'm a side neighbor of this new house to be built, and I just want to clarify a few things. This was only to committee, I think, once. I think it was a COVID issue or it got delayed or something for a week, originally in 2020.
Yeah.
The other thing, I'm pretty sure David Johnson said he's asking for 61%. Not 60 that you've been saying.
You mean this afternoon when he was speaking?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, have him clarify because I thought he said 60, and that's why I asked him to give it to us in square meters, and he said it was 288.9. So we'll get him to clarify whether it was, you could be right because I'm having trouble. The last couple of speakers were very low.
I'm pretty sure he said they instead of going to 63, they're offering to go to 61. Correct? I'm pretty sure of that.
And it looks like everyone wants him to go to 57. Is the magic number I think that's been thrown around.
That's the the biggest on the
Okay, so you're right next door. So what's the impact on you, sir? Let's forget about the numbers.
It's just, the size of the house, a house close to my house with 1.22 meters, which I think is by law, how close you can go to the lot line, and just the mass of the house beside me. My windows are going to now be looking at a brick wall, etc. But on this matter, I really just would agree with whatever the committee thinks is a reasonable size house for this neighborhood. Like, it's going to be a big house one way or another, but whatever the committee thinks a house in this neighborhood should be, then I can agree with that. So I just think 63 is way too big.
Okay,
and I'm requesting it to be
so
smaller.
So does community planning, and they were at 63. We don't know what it would be at 60. I did hear the reference to 57 somewhere. I'm not sure it was here or through one of the.
Oh yeah, no, because that's the 3-4 houses down. There's a house that got approved for 57.
Okay.
And but I mean, whatever the committee thinks is a reasonable percentage, then
Yeah, and luckily looks like he's complying with the side yard setback on your side, so that would have been. Sometimes people come here and there. It's a new build, and they want to come still closer to. If you were listening this afternoon, there were several. Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Boulanger? Okay, so let's move on to the next speaker, Denise Simone at 25 Beaverbrook Avenue.
Hi, yes, this is Denise Simone at 25 Beaverbrook Avenue. I think I agree with most of the reports that everybody has said. I disagree with the first speaker, Mr. Johnson, that a reduction to 61%, which is what I also heard, is a significant reduction in size. The removal of 300 square feet from this house has done literally nothing to decrease the footprint of the dwelling on the property. At 48-foot wall, you know, from front to back on a house that's existing wall is 24 feet from front to back. It's doubling the size of the house in wall space alone. It's more than it's almost tripling the size of the house in floor space. Even at 61% and down to 3,110 square feet, you're also increasing the basement by nearly 700 square feet. And I know that doesn't get factored into the size of a house, but I think that just accentuates that a 48-foot wall on both sides of that property, and not to mention 8 windows at the back, which would take away my privacy as well, based on where I'm situated. And on top of all of that is my great concern for water and water management in this neighborhood. With multiple bathrooms, I think I counted 5, 2 laundry rooms, 1 kitchen. Who knows if a rough-in for another kitchen will go in? And we are concerned about rental and student living because that does happen in our neighborhood.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for the speaker? Or if not, we'll go on to the next speaker is someone without an address, Patricia White. And that's the last.
23 I'm Patricia White at 23 Beaverbrook Avenue. I'm on the corner of Beaverbrook and Vassar. I agree with everything that's been said wholeheartedly, but I am getting extensive
Excuse me, we
flooding
need
now.
your
Has
actual
anyone
address,
ever
Patricia. We need your actual address.
She's dead.
23 Beaverbrook, I did see it.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear her.
And it's at the corner of Vassar and Beaverbrook.
Yep.
My concern right now is I'm getting all the water flowing down Vassar from all the new builds, all the new renovations over the last years, and now with digging out a basement twice the size of the basement now, am I going to get more flooding? I had to phone the city on March the 25th, and I have the pictures to prove the extensive flooding I had at the side of my garage. I can't, things are not growing well anymore. Every time it rains, I'm worried about the flooding at the side here. I had to phone the city and tell them about the flooding over my driveway, all coming down the backyards of Vassar. Now with digging another large hole, am I going to have more extensive flooding? What's going to be done about me? I'm at the bottom. I get it all. That is my concern, and I just, and everything else, I agree with everyone else has said, but this is scary, all this flooding. I get surrounded by all the water. On March 25th, Vassar and Beaverbrook were flooded over, and my property was all flooded at the side of the garage. I have all the pictures to prove. You want the pictures, you can have them. My whole side yard to the garage on the Vassar side was completely flooded. Now, who's going to say when they start digging again, am I going to be flooded again? So can anyone say to me, you're not going to be flooded?
Okay, and anything else to add, ma'am? We'll
No,
have the
that's
agent
it. I'm just
respond.
concerned about the water flow. It's very bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we don't
I have
typically
the
deal with
pictures
those
of
issues.
Sorry?
Issues of drainage and water. We deal with the built form. We don't deal with those issues.
Yeah,
Perhaps
but when they're planning a house, don't they change the water flow coming down the back?
Okay, we'll ask the applicant to see what he's done about mitigation of water.
I guess I'm going to dig a basement twice the size. So what does that mean for me?
So I guess your
I mean,
concern
it's
is with
a
not this, with
fact.
all
You
the,
look out the window, you see your yard flooded.
so you're concerned with this property and other properties, new properties that have increased the water flow down
Well, yes,
downstream
here
to
they're
your
building the
property?
basement.
Okay, just trying
I'm
to,
in the same house, and they're building a basement 2.5 times larger. And so, is that digging down and everything? Isn't that going to disturb more? And am I not going to get more water down here?
okay, we'll let the applicant respond. Thank you. Okay, any questions for Ms. White before we move back to have the agent respond, Mr. Johnson, to the concerns of the neighbors? Okay, so back to Mr. Johnson. If you can respond to the concerns and.
Right. The first thing I should do is clarify that I did say 61%.
Oh, okay.
And,
My bad.
And I believe, yeah, and everybody was hearing correctly.
Okay, so 61 works out to 288.9.
That I would have to check, but it is 61.61.
Well, you were supposed to get us
Sir,
that
you gave me
figure
that number.
during
You gave us the number. 288.9, right?
We live
Well,
with the
you
number.
need to confirm that because this is your application.
Let me just continue and see if someone in the background can come up with the number, okay? I'm sorry, but I think we're trying to come along with time here. Number one, I think that sticks out was the immediate neighbor was worried about part of the house was closer to the property line than 1.22 meters. And I believe that the explanation is there's a chimney, and chimneys are allowed to project beyond the face of the building. That's normal in all bylaws. And since it's already gone through a zoning check, I think that would indicate that we're in good shape. Okay, I have a confirmation from the client group that 61% equals 3,110 square feet. And we're just going to have to confirm everything else here. So it's 3110 to metric. Sorry.
You're using your 5 minutes here, sir.
It's at 288.9.
Yeah, that's what you told us about 10 minutes ago.
Okay,
Thank you.
then we just confirm. Okay, so carrying on, I think in general cases that there is no intention to rent out rooms to students. The number of many people have a laundry room on the second floor and one in the basement for convenience for a whole bunch of reasons we don't need to go into. There are trees in the area. There's been a lot of discussion about visibility of what people would see or what they might not see. When it comes to the control of water runoff, it usually is more of a generalized area than a site-specific. There's no doubt that I can confirm that this client and myself can work with any and all to sort out what issues could be developed from this property. But I think in general, it may be a general area, but we're willing to look at it. We're always here to help out. And the bylaw, unfortunately, is what it is. The house could be actually slightly deeper. The property could be developed quite differently, more on a modern context that would not please anyone in the neighborhood, and it would really cause some severe issues for any and all the property owners. This is a very traditional house. It follows all the traditional guidelines. The property immediately to the left of the house is identical in depth. And when it comes down to sun studies, it is conjecture. We do them as a part of our service to clients, but we remind everybody here that the majority of the time that we use the outside of our houses is after 5 o'clock or 4:30 in the afternoon, and there's no reason why not, but you have to take into account all the existing trees. I think we've come up with a relatively simple house in a complex area, and we are just slightly above what the urban design staff would support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any follow-up questions for Mr. Johnson, or in fact for any of the neighbors, or we bring it into committee for a decision? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just initially to summarize a couple of comments that you made during the discussions, we don't deal with water issues. We don't deal with occupancy issues. We deal with massing issues. And when we consider massing, it's related to the width of the building, the height of the building, and the depth of the building. This building does not require any variances from any of those three things. So if we look at the three variances and compare them to what is permitted as of right, I conclude that the variances are minor. They have no dramatic negative impact on people's enjoyment of their properties in the neighborhood. And I move approval subject to urban forestry condition 2.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that motion? Mr. Komarick, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Ruddick dissenting. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, and thank you to all the neighbors who weighed in
Thank
here.
you, the committee. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so do we have Mr. Shabadi back on the line for item 34? Okay, well, then he can wait to the end. Item number 36. Item number 36, 93 Lake Promenade. It's an application for a detached dwelling with an attached garage with 12 variances. This matter was deferred from the September 14, 2021 hearing. Planning is requesting a refusal of variance number 13. If the below-grade garage, or if approved, a condition for a technical review, et cetera. Transportation has 5 conditions of approval. TRCA has no objection. There are 5 letters of support, 4 letters of opposition. We have correspondence from the owner and something about a change to the basement plan to satisfy the TRCA has been done, but it doesn't affect the variances. And urban forestry is looking for conditions 1 and 2. We have Mr. Flynn representing the owner, and we have a whole whack of speakers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 speakers, including 2 from the Long Branch Association. So we have 3 neighbors and 2 ratepayer representatives. Mr. Flynn, welcome back.
Mr. Chairman, how are you? I'm hoping you're still good. At any rate, you kind of stole my thunder there, but to review, planning department and the applicant worked together for almost a year on this application. It went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And as you can tell, many changes were made in support of planning's position. The one item they could not find agreement on was the below-grade garage. That is an existing condition. As a matter of fact, on that side of the street facing the lake or fronting the lake, 25% of the homes have below-grade garages. So that's the only real contention between planning and ourselves, and we have no objection to planning's condition should the committee choose to approve.
That's the technical review of the below-grade garage if the committee saw fit to approve it, correct? Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Now, I have a question before you continue. You said it's an existing condition, but this is a new build.
Yes, it is.
So how is it an existing
in a
position?
situation? Well, I mean, you can argue that it doesn't apply because it's a new build, but it's an existing condition. The houses around it, immediately beside it, have negative or below-grade garages. I call it negative slope garage. However, it's below grade according to the bylaw.
Yeah, but Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
I agree it's there now. I agree a lot of the neighbors have it for the older builds. Since 2012, the city has sort of put a ban on these below-grade garages. I am responsible for when I was on the Midtown Committee in the 90s for approving hundreds of below-grade garages like Avenue Road, Lawrence area, and they're not good.
Yeah.
Raised first floor. The agents would come in and say, well, you can have that or else we'll go up 3 stories. But they do cause issues, and so the issue, I think, is when you go to rebuild and you don't include your below-grade garage. So slowly those will disappear as the properties get redeveloped, correct? Do you agree with that?
Well, yes, but I have spoken to planning on a number of occasions for a number of projects like this, and I've said to them, would you prefer a height variance or below-grade garage variance? And invariably, they said below-grade garage, because they want the appearance of the house to be similar to the houses around it. So in this particular case, where you have 25% of one side of the street has negative slope garages, if you'll allow me that description, this is the better solution. So to continue, we had, this property has gone to committee in the past 3 years ago, was approved by committee, not exactly this design, but was approved, was appealed by the neighbor. The neighbor settled at appeal, and all of this was approved, or not this. This new design is a result of changing needs for the family. There are special needs people going to be living in this home. But the changes have been an improvement. So the height has changed, the type of length has changed, the house has been moved forward slightly as a result of both the appeal decision and in an effort to satisfy the neighbor next door who wanted to maintain her view of the lake and of downtown Toronto. We have tried to work with that lady, and she has refused for a year to have anything to do with us, to have any conversation at all. We offered to show her plans and discuss them with her. She refused absolutely. So, you know, we've attempted to work with the neighborhood. And by the way, there is a petition of 41 signatures in support, in addition to what you stated at the beginning. So this has become a bit of a celebrity situation. But if you look at the variances, and I can go through them one by one with you if you'd like, but the bottom line is that they have been improved dramatically since the original application. They've been improved since the original approval by TLAB. And many of us thought the client was crazy to even attempt this, but we think he's done a very good job in redesign. And if the only wart is a negative slope driveway or below grade garage, I would suggest to you that that's a fairly decent trade-off because it gives a nice height for the home. And I've had a lot of experience with below-grade garages, and some of them are problematic, but if they're well-designed and well-maintained, they don't create the problem that gave rise to the reason that that requirement of the bylaw was inserted. So as you probably are aware, Etobicoke always allowed below-grade garages up until 2013 when the new bylaw came in. And it's very prevalent throughout the city, the former city of Etobicoke, but also in other areas of the city. So I don't think it's a necessarily bad thing. When there was a works department in Etobicoke, they didn't like them much because everybody wanted to connect them to the storm sewers. So there was a problem with that, and people had to build in catch basins with sump pumps and pump up to grade and distribute the water on the property. And that worked quite well, except on occasion.
Yeah, Mr. Flynn, if you could wrap up, you've been let you go over 6 minutes already because I interrupted, but you got to bring this to
Okay. All right, well, just to make that final point, Transportation has reviewed this, and they have no issue with it. They have conditions that they want to see, but all in all, planning is overall happy with this application and with the changes we made. TRCA is happy, and I think that we have met the requirements of all those departments and bodies, and we think we meet the 4 tests, and we would ask the committee to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Any questions for Mr. Flynn before we go on and hear from the neighbors? Okay, the first neighbor is Andrea Hutka at 89, 89 Lake Promenade. I guess one house over.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Andrea Hutka, owner of 89 Lake Promenade, 2 doors to the east of 93 Lake Promenade, the address to which I'm speaking. So good afternoon, everybody. And yes, so many of my concerns have been addressed over and over again in the letters of objection to the current plan. I guess there's no point repeating them all, but one of my biggest concerns about the new building design and the way the construction will affect the drainage for our house, most importantly due to the design of the sloped underground garage at 93 Lake Prom. Just recently, on Thursday, August 26th, there was a significant flooding in this area, including the street level. With the construction proposed of the sloped garage at 93 Lake Prom, this will no doubt compound the problem with flooding in our area. The slope of the underground garage is really unacceptable due to the soil type and also for the infrastructure in our neighborhood. It can't control it now. I can't imagine if everybody keeps continuing with this kind of design, how it's going to be in the future. Also, Mr. Flynn mentioned that list, that petition, which I think was possibly prepared 5 to 6 years ago for the initial proposal. And that list of a petition of, I don't know how many neighbors approving it who live far and wide. Did someone actually contact these people recently, and are they still there? And have they seen the new drawings? And how are they going to be affected by this? I do not approve moving forward with this type of a design as it stands currently. That's everything for now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hutka. Any questions for the speaker before we move on to the next? Okay. Next speaker is Christine Mercado on behalf of the Long Branch Neighborhood Association. Unless you want to go to, usually like to be at the end. Ms. Mercado?
That's kind of, yes, Mr. Chair. That's actually kind of how it usually works best because I speak to policy.
And
so some of the stuff I said
okay,
won't
so
make
you're
sense.
speaking on planning. Is Andy speaking on trees or what's?
No, actually, Mr. Choles, we were both registered in case one of us wasn't able to attend.
Okay,
but,
so you'll only be speaking and not Andy?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, we'll leave you for the end. So next speaker is Catherine Kotzeris from 99 Lake Promenade, and I recall we do have a letter from Catherine as well. Catherine,
Hello,
welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Catherine Kotzeris, and for over 12 years, I've enjoyed my home at 99 Lake Promenade, located on the west side of the subject property. I appreciate the opportunity to explain my objection to this application. I would like to reference what Mr. Flynn had just mentioned as categorically false. There have not been any consultations with the owner of 93 Lake Promenade. He had approached me with the intention of just having my support, not my consultation. I asked him to send me the plans, but he refused because he did say, quote, "I don't want them to get out." But I had said that they will be listed on the Committee of Adjustments site in any event, but he would not. He simply wanted my support, not my input. And all along, my objections have been the length. I've always supported the fact that a larger new home would be built on this lot. However, I anticipated a more appropriate and less invasive footprint. The variances requested on this application are excessive and would block the lake view and shade my yard. Furthermore, the street view enjoyed by pedestrians will also be adversely impacted due to the reduced side yard setbacks. 3 years ago, the applicant requested a settlement within an hour of the opening of the T-Lab hearing, which was my appeal to the previous approval of a very large home. He offered to reduce the length of the new house in order to conclude the appeal process. At the insistence of my lawyer, I agreed to the settlement. But now, this new application would nullify the agreement. We're back to a 75-foot or 23 meters length, and that was not agreed to. It was to be scaled back with the T-Lab settlement. So he's reneging on that settlement. This is not fair nor just. The immense size of this proposed house will permanently adversely impact the enjoyment of my home and yard, with an enormous wall overtaking the east side of my property and jeopardizing, of course, the flooding. The clay soil does not accommodate well this type of below-grade structure. And I agree with my neighbor at 89. It is setting a terribly dangerous precedent. There was, if this is approved as submitted, I have a reverse drive or a rear or low grade drive as well. I can't use it. The garage is crumbling. It floods. It is just, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, that we have enough data to support why the city several years ago prohibited these kinds of driveways. Now, another thing too is that this house has not been a family home. So perhaps Mr. Jaggi has already sold it to a family with special needs. But the reverse driveway and this massive oversized house, I'm sure can be scaled down and to diminish the harm caused by too large of a home. It's a terrible precedent as well. And I believe the value of the lake view and utility of an unobstructed yard is far more essential to the well-being of our neighborhood and perhaps the new occupants of a new home. I respectfully request your consideration in declining this application, or at the very least, a deferral, in which case I welcome the panel to visit my backyard to gain a sense of the impact a house this size would have. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question you raised at the beginning about the settlement at T-Lab. Now we're into the hearing.
Yes.
So I'm looking at the variance. You mentioned it in feet. So in meters, because I like feet better, but everything's in
Same
meters.
here.
Permitted length is 17 meters. They're at 22.89. What was the settlement? What were you at when you settled?
20 meters, 20.
20 meters.
No, wait. It would have been around 21 meters. I could obtain a copy of that
No,
settlement.
I'm
for
just
you.
wanted to know what the range of that, because they're almost 6 meters beyond the 17. 20 would have been like halfway. So
Right.
the fact is they abandoned that proposal and came back with a fresh application after they made a settlement with you on the length.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
We'll have Mr.
You're
Flynn
very
respond to
welcome.
that situation. And also to point out, because I didn't realize you're at 99, but you actually, I guess there is no 95 and there is no 97. So you, in
No.
fact, are right next door.
Yes,
Just wanted
sir.
to point that out if anyone looks at the address and thinks you're a few houses away. You're not. You're right next door. Okay, next speaker is
Correct.
Mr. Stern from 91 Lake Promenade, next door on the other side.
Hi there. As you said, my name is Robert Stern. I am the agent for the owners and the occupants of 91 Lake Promenade, my parents. And I just wanted to say that we've been back and forth with Sahil, the owner of 93 Lake Promenade, with discussing the designs of his house, and he was accommodating to all and any of our requests. So he found very easy to deal with, and we enjoyed the time that he took to redesign. We particularly like the design of the house, and one of the things we do like about the design of the house is the reverse grade garage, as it improves the street view. A lot of the houses, like you'll see in developments, are they called snout houses, and all you see is a garage as the face of the house. It's not a very good look. It's not very warm. And the other thing how reverse grade garage does is puts eyes on the street. So now you can have people in your front room and they can see exactly what's going on in the street. Kids are playing, they can watch them. It's actually what the Long Branch and neighborhood guidelines call for and the official plans. Eyes on the street is such an important thing. And lastly, I just want to talk about soil type, as we're doing a project there as well, and infrastructure. We have done boreholes. The soil type is standard soil type. But what people are complaining about is driveways running, things running to the road and flooding and all those kind of things. With a reverse grade garage, that area that is a reverse grade driveway is now taken out of the city infrastructure, because this is a very unique condition where you can drain gravity fed to the lake. So that area that would have been going back into the city's storm sewers is not now. And the other thing I'd like to bring up is in 2008, this moratorium came about on reverse grade driveways in North York. And this was because they were draining back into storm sewers, there's flooding, issues in basements, and ensuing. So we, what Sahil has done here is mitigate that concern. So we personally don't see an issue with the reverse grade garage. We think it generally looks better, and it shouldn't be an issue for drainage, which was planning's big concern, as far as I understand. In general, love the way the house looks, and I think it'll be a welcome addition to the street. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stern. We'll hear from, I don't know if the Long Branch people agree with you that a reverse slope driveway is what's called for. And so you're in favor of the application. You're speaking in favor, correct? You're happy with
Absolutely,
this
yes.
plan?
In support.
You think it's
Yes.
an improvement over the last plan? Okay. thank
Absolutely.
you.
We've seen both plans, and this is definitely an improvement.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll go back to Mr. Flynn then to respond to the concerns of the neighbors. Oh, sorry, my mistake, my bad. We have Christine Mercado. to
And I yell into the microphone and no one can hear me.
the cleanup hitter here. Okay. We have
Thank
your
you,
letter.
Mr.
We
Chair.
have your letter. Yeah.
Thank you. If you could, if staff could go to page number 3 of the letter. The LBNA does acknowledge that the applicant has had an approval that was tied to the plan, and now he's changed his mind, which is totally his right. So now this is a new application that's subject to the immediate context that is existing today. So I would like to speak to the height, length, and side yard setbacks, and now the built form, which would not be in compliance with the OP and the guidelines. So on page number 3, this is now a flat roofed home. And so it's subject to a much lower front wall height variance than if it was a peaked roof. So the intent of the 7-meter height bylaw is to lessen the perceived height and massing of the home in the public realm. So the applicant has marked the peaked roof bylaw in red and green for the application that he did not want. So using the 9-foot door as a scale, I put in purple where the bylaw approximately sees as the roof line to where it's being appropriate. It's less overwhelming to neighboring properties, which are peaked roofs. And the applicant also proposes 11 and 12-foot ceilings. So he has room to shorten the proposal without losing the openness that the floor to ceiling windows that he's proposed would create. We also object to the length of the building. So in this new application, the house is much longer than what's permitted. Other applicants along Lake Promenade, which are being heard today actually, are doing their best to eliminate length variances. And this applicant has gone longer to what is permitted and has not even paid regard to what was settled on, which was already spoken to by the next door neighbor. So if you can go to page number 4, please. The zoning waiver is of that reduction of 0.6, that is excessive. And I haven't seen this variance applied for in a 25-foot lot that's not already existing. So if you now go to page 9, the house is located on Lake Promenade, which is the waterfront trail and the Great Trail. So it's a destination for visitors and tourists. The small side yard setbacks, the excessive height benefit one person and take away from many. They remove the vistas of the lake, landscaping, sky, and cut off the moderating breezes off the lake. So, and finally, I do have to speak to the reverse grade garage. I do feel that this application is premature without, by offering an approval due to a condition. Because this reverse grade garage, where's it going to go if you refuse it? And if you refuse it, will it get pushed up into the volume of the home, or will it end up being 2 floors above a garage? That built form is actually not in compliance with the guidelines, therefore not in compliance with 4.15 policy E, location of garages and driveways. So pushing that garage above ground would create a condition that's not in compliance with the OP or the guidelines and does not exist in the immediate context when considering OPA 320 that considers prevailing conditions that exist. And that's just a big question mark. This is not a small statement that planning has made. I do really think that a full investigation should be in whether a reverse grade garage is actually appropriate or even approvable from a city's point of view. But since this is not a deferred application, it should be refused based on the 4 tests, as it does not comply with 4.1.5 policy C, which is the height, massing, and scale policy, E, location of garages and driveways, and policy G, setback. As an example, 139 Lake Promenade removed their length variance. 91 Lake Promenade was refused for similar application variances for a reverse grade driveway, and 106 Lake Promenade removed the length variance and was still refused for built form, which was 2 stories above a garage. And so I do feel that this application does still need some work to be done. So we would respectfully ask that, since it's not deferred, that it's refused.
Thank you. Exactly 5 minutes.
I do my best.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Flynn, back to you. And I guess a question for you, if the committee was to refuse the below grade, can you still build this with the variances that you have if you got the balance of the variances, or do you have a problem?
No, we would have to redesign or build the approval that we already have.
Redesign, you might have to come back with more variances. Or try to live with what you got.
Yes.
Okay, so in any event, we've heard from a number of neighbors, including both adjacent. So let's have your rebuttal.
Okay, so number one, if we talk about the length, that seems to be a big issue. The length is measured including the rear deck. It's a concrete deck and it's 3 meters long. And it has a basement below it. And that's why the building department's examiners counted the full thing. So, in fact, there is not a house that is that long. It's a deck that's 3 meters long, built on the back of a house. So it's actually shorter than people are trying to claim it is. The other side of this coin is that from the height perspective, the approval that they had obtained from T-Lab was for a peaked roof and significantly taller than the one that's being asked for today. So that's a big improvement on what could have been. And these things contribute to improving the view of the neighbor, who was very concerned about it all. By the way, contrary to what the neighbor says, Catherine, it was Catherine who initiated the settlement because we were asking for costs and she decided she didn't want to incur any costs because of the tactics that she used in delaying the hearing. So, you know, she's not completely.
Okay, you know what, Mr. Flynn, let's leave this side of questioning, okay? Because I was actually just reading your letter at the same time. It said that who initiated the settlement, but let's not talk about costs or tactics. How do you know she would have lost? Maybe you'd have to pay her costs. So let's not get into that. Let's deal with the issues here.
Okay.
You said there was whether who never initiated it, there was a settlement, correct? She said, is she telling the
Correct.
truth about that? So your client made a settlement, and now they're back here to do something else because of changes.
Okay. She commented on who was going to reside in this home.
Yeah. Oh, that's
There is a
irrelevant. That's
child-
irrelevant. That's irrelevant. I don't want to hear about that. I don't care if it's
Well,
students, special needs, whatever.
He
We're
just
building as
making remarks.
as I said, and then Mr. Taylor said in another application here today, we don't deal with those. We deal with the build form. We're not dealing with who's living in there. There
Okay.
was something else in your letter that I wanted to comment about. Hold on, I'll give you extra time. Oh yeah, you said your words here in your little cover letter here. Neighbor frivolously appealed to T-Lab. What do you mean frivolously? Does the neighbor not have the right to appeal?
I didn't agree with that. I didn't write that letter, by the way.
Well, who wrote
And
the
I
word
don't agree with
frivolously?
the
An
word.
appeal is
Everybody
not
has the
frivolous.
right.
Are we here on a slam dunk? This was not a frivolous appeal, and this hearing is not frivolous. And if this application gets appealed, it's not frivolous. So, I'm happy
I
to hear.
agree with you.
I'm happy to hear that you didn't write that.
No, I did not.
I don't know if you.
Going
signed it.
back to other items, first of all, the guidelines are not law, and they are not one of the tests of the Planning Act. There are 4 tests, not 5, and the guidelines are not a test.
Okay.
The size of this home is 3,009 square feet, or 279.63 square meters. That is not a monster house. And council has said over and over again that that type of size is acceptable and not a monster home. So then they go to drainage. Drainage is always an issue, I grant you that, especially if you're at the end of a street, at the bottom of a street, where everything is draining to. But we have a lake behind this house, and the engineering for moving water to the lake is not difficult. And there are a number of ways to deal with stormwater, one of which is French drains, which I'm a big fan of. So there are a number of things that can be done to alleviate any kind of flooding created by this property or this construction. Then they get into things like side yard setback. We went over this with planning and with building department as a group to make sure that we were in the right spot or the right page on this one. This lot is a legally existing lot, and it has a legally existing lot frontage. The lot frontage then moves that whole thing to a requirement of 0.9 meters as a side yard setback. That is the legal requirement, and planning and building agree. So their argument in that regard holds no water at all, although that may cause flooding. At any rate, there are a number of things that just aren't right about some of these objections. And this applicant has made great strides to try and achieve something that's acceptable. It certainly is acceptable, except for the garage situation, to planning department, to transportation, and forestry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we think that all of the 4 tests that are contained in the Planning Act are met, and we believe we can ask you for approval.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Flynn, so what's the final, is the FSI number as stated here, 1.14?
You mean the percentage?
Yeah, the percentage, the floor space index.
Okay, one moment.
And is there precedent for that? That's.
Yes, there are. I've done many properties in this neighborhood
So
on this street.
So it's over 3 times the allowable.
Well, this goes to the issue about hazard lands. So part of this whole thing with TRCA, et cetera, is that the applicant is going to rebuild the, what do you call it, the storm wall? The whole thing is going to be rebuilt, and TRCA is requiring them to rebuild that prior to any construction of a home occurring. So that is, it actually increased the allotted land, which reduced the GFA or FSI. And if you didn't count the hazard land, we would be down at a much more reasonable number, and I just find it in my notes here. All this stuff is all over the place. Okay, if the hazard land was not deducted from the total lot area, the FSI would be 0.47.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Flynn or for any of the neighbors for that matter? And if not, is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Andy Bellissimo would like to weigh in with a motion. As an architect, I know that many elements are involved in design, but to me, the reverse garage grade is a starting point for this proposal. And I think with the new build, the opportunity was here to not include that in the design. And I think it had an incorrect starting point. So my motion is to refuse the variances.
So the motion to refuse the application. Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded. Ms. Ruddick. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The application is refused. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Thank you to all the neighbors and the Long Branch representatives.
We just need to pause to switch the YouTube stream.
Okay.
So for anyone who's watching on YouTube, the current stream will end and it'll be the PM part 2. So maybe we'll just take a 5-minute break right now.
Okay, and then we'll come back and do 37, 38, and then 34. And we'll be done.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.